Life Lessons, the Gintama Manga Cast, episode 54. I am your host, Colton, and we are a podcast dedicated to not only talking about Gintama through the manga, but Gintama through the old Viz Media release over here in North America. That was unfortunately discontinued after the first 23 volumes. But essentially we like to talk about Gintama the manga from the beginning, and we are currently at volume 10. Just in case you may not have listened to our previous episode 53, we are in the middle of covering the Infant Strife arc. That is chapters 77 through 80. And on this episode, we are going to be finishing off the arc with chapters 79 and 80 in particular, with special guest, unofficial Gintama translator Bomber D Rufi, otherwise known as Kirobon on Twitter. As for the rest of the show, we have our usual life lessons segment, going through each chapter title of every chapter of the manga and discussing how it may relate to the chapter or the series overall. Obviously, we're going to be talking about chapters 79 and 80 in their chapter titles respectively. And afterwards, we will conclude with a anime manga comparison segment of episodes 51 and 52 of the anime. So that's pretty much it for this episode. And I guess just before we go on to the show, there are a few things that I need to talk about real quick. First and foremost, if you haven't listened to the previous episode, we are conducting essentially our first podcast survey, basically asking our listeners, where you might be downloading or listening to the podcast, which special guests or frequent contributors to the show would you like to hear more from? Just stuff like that. Just some general feedback on the show. It's been a couple of years. I figured I'd start doing something like this. We've already gotten a few responses so far, so that's good. Already kind of have an idea of which guests people really like to listen to, but we really could use a few more answers for this survey. So the survey is actually going to be up until about April this year. Basically the month of our, I want to say our 4th anniversary. And we'll be talking about the results. Lost my words there for a second. We'll be talking about the results of that survey on our 4th anniversary podcast. So that'll be interesting to take a look at, but we really could use a few more people to take a look at that and answer that. So hopefully the link to that survey will either be in the show notes of this episode and other episodes of the show until April, or, if you follow us on Twitter, that's Gintama Manga Cast on Twitter. You'll see me occasionally tweet out the survey every once in a while, hopefully as often as I can. But yeah, please take that if you are, if you would be so kind to. I would really appreciate that. But let's see what else. So, since the last episode of the podcast, actually, I think actually the day I had finished editing and finalizing the last episode of the podcast was actually the day Crunchyroll decided to start uploading new episodes of their Gintama English dub. So that was a pretty nice surprise. I won't talk too much about my thoughts about the dub so far right now, just because I think I might want to maybe save those for a future podcast. I'm sort of in talks with Doctor at the moment from Just a Gintama podcast, again, another frequent contributor to the show, about maybe doing some kind of a podcast discussion about that in the future. Maybe I'll even put it up on this feed as well. I don't know. We're still kind of figuring things out with that. But, just to let you guys know some info about that dub, Crunchyroll is not dubbing the series from episode 1. That may come as a slight surprise to some of you, though I feel like I may understand why they've made this decision. Few factors probably are in play there, but it seems like for right now, Crunchyroll has dubbed in English, episodes 266 to 316, and they're in the middle of releasing about 13 episodes a week every Wednesday for that season in particular. So essentially, those episodes are from the 2015 run of the Gintama anime, including such arcs as the Shogun Assassination and Farewell Shinsengumi arcs. And I will just say so far, and just in case anyone's wondering this at least, the dub has been pretty good so far. It's, I promise it is a lot better than whatever dub Sentai gave the Benizakura movie. It is so much better than that. I really do think it's worth checking out. I'm already kind of growing fond of a lot of the characters' voices in English already. And I'm actively looking forward to each batch of episodes every Wednesday. I've been watching a lot of them and tweeting my thoughts at them. If you want to follow me, that's Sniper King 323. But essentially, it's good. I promise. You will not hate it. I can promise that. So if you're caught up enough to the anime and you want to check it out, I suggest you do. That's at Crunchyroll.com. I'll probably leave a link to those batch of episodes in the show notes if anyone is curious. But yeah, so it's out and people should watch it, especially if we want any chance of Crunchyroll to, because essentially I feel like if these episodes do well, and honestly, these are a pretty good batch of episodes to start with, really gives you a good kind of sample size of what all the characters will sound like in English. Definitely more so than the very end of the Benizakura movie, where like almost every character got like one line, and you had to like judge their Sentai voices from that one line, which, to be honest, I didn't think was very fair. But that's just how the movie is. But yeah, no. So I think personally, these are a good batch of episodes to start off with. It really gives you a good sense of how these actors portray their respective characters. And I think if there's any hope of Crunchyroll, hopefully starting from the beginning, you guys should really support this dub and watch it on Crunchyroll, and buy the DVDs and Blu-rays when those eventually are out. There's been no information on those at this time, but we will definitely be letting you know when there is some kind of release date for those. I personally will be buying both DVDs and Blu-rays because I want to support the shit out of this. Very much so. I feel like I wouldn't be a good fan if I didn't. I promise that's not I'm not trying to guilt anyone else. That's just a standard I set for myself in particular. I'm just going to shut up before I accidentally offend somebody. But no, dub is good. I really enjoy it. Again, hopefully look forward to a podcast where I can maybe talk more in depth about the dub and what I think about a few performances in particular. But yeah, that's a thing. Go watch it on Crunchyroll. It's well worth it. Please support this. I think it's very worth it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to talk about. I don't think there is. So I guess with all of that out of the way, everybody enjoy this episode of the podcast as me and Bomber finish off the Infant Strife arc. Enjoy. This is the manga recap for chapter 79. If you want to see someone, make an appointment first. And so, we basically start off this next chapter of the infant arc, whereas last chapter, Hashida was in the middle of interrogating Ofusa about the whereabouts of his grandson, Kanshichiro, and he's in the middle of that, and he basically is about to order his two goons to basically take out one of Ofusa's eyes, and Hashida asks Ofusa, well, hey, do you know why you have two eyes? It's so that, you can still get by in life after we cut one out. Which is, I guess that's some sound logic, but I would rather keep both of my eyes.
I always, I don't know, I love, one thing with Sorachi is I love that he has these really great pre-badassery one-liners, even though in this case it's really not badass, it's more
like shitty and terrifying.
Yeah, it is shitty and terrifying, but I always like his something shit's about to go down lines. He's really good at that.
Yeah. There's a lot of great tension here in this beginning scene, as Hashida's basically like, hey, it's your last chance. Where's my grandson? And obviously, Officer is, she's nervous, and she's sweating quite a lot, but this scene is great, because even though she is definitely in dire straits, and you can tell she does not like the situation, she's basically willing to sacrifice anything really, in order to keep her son safe, which is very admirable. I really like the close-up shots here at the bottom of the page where Hashida's men are basically holding up the blade to her eye closer and closer. It's really nice and cinematic. I like it. It makes Officer so much more of a badass.
Yeah, I agree.
This also gives more evidence to what everybody usually says about Gintama, and how so Sorachi's female characters are usually very good. I would say arguably better than really most Jump authors, or really anyone that writes shonen in general. And I think this is just further evidence of that, especially with a really minor character too. So I very much appreciate that.
I mean, interesting note about Ofusa, her name is, I don't have the kanji in front of me, but her name, the O isn't part of her name, probably? I won't...
Oh, yeah, it's one of those things where,
it's part of, it's adding the O to the name makes a woman, it's more honorable, kind of like ties, O-tie.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, so you're saying it's very possible that
her name is just Fusa, but the only thing is I've never heard of that name. So I want to believe, well, while you're reading, I guess I could look that up, but I want to believe it might just be Fusa, but...
That's interesting. I didn't even, think about that, because I do keep forgetting that, because for a while, I never knew that Otai was, the O wasn't actually a part of her name. That's, a very... the from what I understand, I know you just explained it, but for a while, from what everybody was telling me, it seemed, from what how I understand it, it just seemed like the O in front of most women's names, it was basically just a very old kind of honorific in a sense.
Yeah, essentially that's what it kind of is.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but I guess while you look that up, you can interrupt me anytime. But
right.
So essentially, before Ofusa's eye can be gouged out, thankfully Shinpachi Kagura and Hasegawa are knocked into the room through the door, because Shinpachi was watching in the last chapter, and Hashida is obviously surprised by this and asks, what the hell's going on, as Nizo and the rest of his men come into the room, and Nizo's like, "Oh, sorry to interrupt. I found these people watching from outside," and obviously Hashida recognizes at least Kagura and Shinpachi from when he saw him at Otose's place, and he's just like, "Well, you've got a lot of nerve, spying on me in my own." In my own territory, I'm pretty sure I told you that this was a family matter and that we'd handle it from here. And Shinpachi retorts back and says, "That's okay. We're here on our own account. Don't you think you're kind of going a little too far, even for such a devoted grandfather such as yourself, Mr. Hashida?" And Hashida is obviously, he's like, "Oh, well, you went too far, when you chose to meddle in my affairs. There are things in this world that you're better off not knowing." And after he says that, the rest of his goons are ready to pounce and attack them, which Hasegawa's like, hey guys, I have nothing to do with this. Can I go home? This is my first day on the job. I'm really sorry. like, please let me go. And and I feel sorry for Hasegawa. This is probably one of the worst first days on the job ever.
Yeah. This poor guy just wants to work, and it seems like every time he finds something to yours, he'll find some way to ruin it.
Yeah. And while he's pleading, Kagura is still keeping up with the mage shtick and is like, "Oh, master, what would you like in your coffee, milk or sugar?" But, actually, scratch that. A coffee actually tastes better with sugar! And just throws a sugar smoke bomb? I guess.
I guess.
That's some very powdery sugar.
I'm not sure where they got that. I'd really like to know. It's always something that's always kind of...
Maybe she got it maybe she had Katsura make it for her. I don't know. No one else is capable of making bombs in this stupid show, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
So what happens on the next page?
So, they make a smoke screen, and, Hashida's like, "You meddling kids." And then they realize, Fusa is gone. And, they're like, "Damn it, she's gone. Block the exits. She still must be in here somewhere." And then you got Nizo, not sure if he's getting high or something, but whatever he's doing, he's got the sniff it in his nose.
Yeah, that's like a weird kind of quirk that I always thought was kind of interesting about him. But I feel like since he's I forgot if they mentioned this in the last chapter or not. I think we know at this point he's blind, and I just, like, now that I think about it, I think it's because he's blind, he's using his other senses to use his his sword techniques. I think it kind of makes sense that he would carry nasal spray to keep his nose clear or whatever.
Yeah, I guess so.
Though it is possible that he maybe uses it a little too much. Maybe he likes it just a little much. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that's what I always thought, because he uses it quite often for it to just be a sort of, "Oh, well, I'm just clearing my nose."
Maybe he just has a very runny nose and we just don't know it.
Maybe it is. And actually, looking it up now, I have finally found Ofusa's name.
Okay.
And yeah, it's Ofusa, but it's interesting because her name means tassel. But yeah, I don't know if it's part of her name, because we're not given. The thing gives us a whole bunch of information. I didn't know her birthday was September 13th.
I didn't even know she had a birthday.
Yeah, apparently it's here. She's got a birthday, and she's September 13th, and her name means tassel, like I said. But I've never heard of Fusa as I mean, it might be her last name, of course. It may not necessarily be her first name. And she's about 5'5". So yeah, this thing's really, really kind of detailed.
I didn't know we had such detailed information on these characters at all. That's really interesting.
Yeah, the Japanese Wikipedia's got, like, I mean, they're in character books. They're clearly probably in character books too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I mean, yeah, I didn't think, but yeah, she's about 5'5", September 13th. 52 kilograms, which I don't feel like doing the math to figure out how much she weighs. Plus, it's rude. But
so wait, so is the O a part of her name then, or?
I would assume not.
Okay, but there's no clear indication if there is or is not.
I would say it isn't, just because there are other women, like, but then again, there's Otose, which I don't know. That one's always kind of mystified me too.
Because we know at this point that, like, Otose is not her real name. That's just like an alias she takes up. Is her actual alias just Tosei? Because that doesn't sound nearly as cool.
Yeah, it doesn't. You see, that's what I always used to think, that doesn't sound right. I mean, I guess at this point, we're both talking about things that don't matter. but I mean, I would assume, I mean, obviously, but the class of both women are way different. Also, I mean, Ofusa is basically a maid.
Yeah.
And Otose is, like, essentially a madam. So
yeah, she's a business owner, so
yeah, so she can choose to do that. So I'm gonna assume that. I mean, but the thing about it is, I guess that could be her first name, because it's not like Tai is known as Oshimura. She's known as Otai.
Yeah.
And her friend is Oreo. So.
Oh, yeah, that is. Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that either. Huh.
Yeah, but Rio for an is actually, I know that for a fact to be an actual female's name.
Oh, okay.
So that, in fact, if we want further proof of this, Soyo Hime's voice actor, her name is Rio Hirohashi.
Oh, okay.
So it is definitely a female's name, but Oreo, I know for a fact that Oreo. But
I think you like that joke a little too much.
Yeah, I know for a fact that the O is just honorable, and same thing for Tai. Her name is Tai.
Yeah, see, I can Tai sounds like, if you take the O out, like Tai still sounds like a normal Japanese name to me, whereas Fusa just sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, and that's my point too. It's like, it doesn't sound right.
Fusa sounds like a name you give to a character in The Lion King.
Yeah, that's just.
Or at least I'm like 80% sure that that is a character name in one of the Lion King movies, but I don't feel like looking it up because it's not important.
Yeah, it's not. And I mean, while we're on the subject of names, Tai's name means strange.
Well, I guess I can kind of see that.
I mean, it means strange, unusual, excellent. So I'm sure Tai prefers the last one, but yeah, that.
Well, I think for all intents and purposes, I'll probably just stick with Ofusa.
Yeah, we could stick with Ofusa. But anyway,
yes.
We got off into a tangent, but it was a Gintama tangent, so it's worth.
It counts.
It counts. That one we can say that we educated the audience a little bit.
Yes,
but yeah, we've got Nizo here using his nose spray. And like you said, it's probably just to keep his other senses clear, even though I feel like he uses quite a bit for that.
He's probably addicted.
Probably. I mean, I've heard Flonase is addictive, but... Alright, so anyway, he sniffs it. He gets a little bit, he gets ready in battle mode. And he's just, standing. Another cinematic sequence here where we got, him concentrating, smoke billowing out. Then the next frame, he's like there, and you see him, satisfactory.
Yeah, he makes the observation that the airflow has changed and that it's basically all flowing out of somewhere.
Yeah, and so the way Sorachi draws it is really nice. It's like, unless you really pay attention, you would miss it. I mean, and I kind of like it when manga artists do that. But anyway, he slashes at the wall, and it looks like he's slashing at nothing but to reveal that our heroes have made it to the roof and haven't had quite enough time to escape yet. Yeah, he basically turns a hole in the wall into a bigger hole. So that was pretty cool, I guess. But yeah, he essentially, he targets and finds our heroes in the middle of escaping, like he said. But on the next page, we kind of cut away from the action for a bit, and we basically go back to the lobby of Hashidaya, where Gin is having a lot of trouble trying to get through the receptionist. And he's basically like, hey, I want to see the company president. Can you make that happen? And the receptionist is basically like, well, hey, do you have an Apo? Which is basically just the shorter version of the word appointment. The Japanese like to shorten words a lot. Yeah, they have a big thing for shortening things to make them easier to say, so you can convey them quickly in speech. And Gin, obviously getting into some wordplay here, is like, what? Apple? What are you talking about? Like what kind of apple? Does the president like? Fuji apples? I guess I can go get some. I mean, I'm already here. I don't really feel like making another trip. But the receptionist is obviously like, no, not apple. Apo. It means appointment. Don't you get our trendy lingo? Why would I ask for an apple? That's stupid. It's not funny. And Gin is just looking at Kanshichiro on his back and is like, look, eat snacks on your own time, lady. I need to see the president. Which
Kanchichiro is picking up on the lingo here, just saying, Appo, Appo. That's cute. And Gin starts complaining about Japanese society, like always, and is like, you can't do anything in Japan these days without going through a whole mountain of red tape. Bureaucracy, am I right, guys? And he just starts yelling, What is Japan coming to? I can't believe it! And obviously, Kanchichiro on his back is like, yeah, Dad, tell it like it is.
I love that you're giving this kid a voice.
I kind of like him more as a character now. Crunchyroll, if you're listening, you should fly us out to San Francisco or wherever you're dubbing Gintama. Voice one, give the voice of the baby to one of us. We'll make sure we stick to the original script.
And not turn Babo, which is what he actually said, into a social commentary.
No, not at all. But the receptionists are obviously like, Sir, please just stop. What are you doing? Stop making our day so much harder. We already have to stand here all fucking day. We don't really want to have to listen to customers, or at least angry customers. It's bullshit. But one of the receptionists is like, oh, hey, that baby on your back, that kind of looks like the company president's baby. Huh, that's interesting. I'm just gonna let that go. And they hear a thud from higher up in the building, and the receptionists are like, oh, what was that? Okay, that was weird. And while they're distracted, Gin gets on the elevator to head up to one of the higher floors of the building, and they're just like, hey, you can't go in there, you need to make an appointment. And Gin's like, Apple. And the baby's like, Apple. And it's cute. Basically like, okay, whatever, bitch, I'm out. So we cut back to the top of the building, and basically Hasegawa, Shinpachi, and Officer are running away from samurai goons, and they're obviously panicking and running very fast, and Hasegawa's like, I can't breathe, my lungs really hurt, I gotta stop smoking, and also I gotta stop hanging out with you guys fucking suck. And Shinpachi is like, hey, where's Kagura? She disappeared. And then what happens next? What's Kagura doing?
Well, she's basically going She-Hulk on, like, I guess a water cooler? I'm not sure what this is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what this is either, because in the anime, like, I know we're kind of jumping ahead a bit here, but when Nizo cuts it eventually, like, it looks like some kind of brown liquid comes out. I wasn't sure if that was like oil or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, of course here we can't tell. It's just a liquid. But, I mean, yeah, basically she rips it out and, she's going Super Saiyan while doing it. And then everybody just stops and looks at her and, like, Shinpachi's like, wait, we're right here, don't throw that. And then she does anyway, and everybody's just like, oh, fuck this, and they run. Except for Nizo, which, I mean, maybe you would think that since he's blind, somebody would tell him, hey, there's something coming towards you.
I would love it. I would love it if, like, somebody thought to tell him but didn't tell him, and then Nizo just doesn't know it's coming at him, and then just hits him. That would have been a lot funnier, but,
Yeah, that's not, but of course he wouldn't be much of a blind wandering swordsman if that could fell him. So clearly he cuts it in half with just one sword stroke. And then, Shinpachi's like, holy crap! And Hasegawa's like, is that guy even human? And then Shinpachi's like, yeah, we're gonna leave, because we don't stand a chance against that guy.
Yeah, we can't fight this guy.
And then, like, he's like, let's run! And Hasegawa's already running. He's like, you're already ahead of me? And then they both trip, and they're falling down a bit. And then they grab the very edge of the building.
Ooh, yeah, they look like they're gonna fall off. That's not good.
They look pretty doomed.
And they die, and that's the end of the arc. I mean, like, I was really interested in seeing where Shinpachi's character development was going to go, but obviously, their dojo was a joke from the very beginning. Like, that was never going to get resolved.
Yeah, 10 volumes is a pretty long time for a Jump manga. I mean,
yeah, like 10 whole volumes. That's pretty good. I think Buso Renkin lasted that long.
Yeah, they got an anime and everything, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it had nothing to do with the fact that it was written by, you know, Watsky.
Oh no, not at all.
It was because it deserved that.
Yes.
And, I mean, as a disclaimer, everybody, I watched Busan and liked it, so this is no way reflecting some kind of discouraging opinion of the series. No.
Yeah, if you want discouraging opinions from Busa Renkin, I'll be sure to have Josh next time, and we'll ask him about his opinions on Busa Renkin, because it's one of his favorite manga that he totally read more than 2 pages of. I'm not even kidding. Josh has actually told me this off mic, just to go on a tangent. He has read. He told me he didn't even finish the first chapter of Busa Renkin before he just totally wrote it off.
Well,
I love Josh, but sometimes I don't know if I really trust his opinion on manga.
Yeah, he seems more like a big anime guy.
Yeah, he is definitely an anime guy. But enough shitting on Josh. So obviously the manga didn't end. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 13 more volumes to cover after this. So basically, all the samurai goons are at the top of the roof, and they're trying to look for everybody, and they're like, oh, well, they disappeared. Guess they fell off the roof. Whatever. Job's done for us. But obviously, Kagura and Ofusa are hanging off the roof, while Shinpachi and Hasegawa are basically pratfall onto the roof below that roof. And basically, everybody's just trying to get their shit together. And, Shinpachi's like, oh, good thing there was another roof under this roof. And Hasegawa's like, man, I was so scared, I almost wet my pants. And Ofusa is just like, who are you guys, and why did you save me? And, basically, Ofusa and Shinpachi, while they're talking entirely in the background, Hasegawa notices there's it's sort like a lot of it kind of goes on in the background. There's a lot more focused on in the anime, but Hasegawa did wet his pants, shows through his apron. Poor guy, he's 38 years old, and he wet his pants. That's very embarrassing.
What I love here is that Kagura's patting on the back like, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I think you suck, but it's okay.
Yeah.
She makes this sound in the anime that's really, I don't know, it's just like pity sound as she's patting him back.
I think I heard her go, yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, hey, there, it's okay.
I mean, it's one of those things that the anime does that I love, that extra, it's just there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But basically, Ofusa finds out that these are the people that she left her baby with, and Shinpachi goes, hey, Kanchichiro's okay. And, Ofusa starts shaking Shinpachi like, where's my baby? Where's my baby? And Shinpachi's like, hey, calm down. Like, he's fine. And basically, he realizes that, Ofusa is the baby's mother. But, Shinpachi starts... Basically, there's some questions we still need to answer here. Like, why'd you leave your baby with us? Like, we kind of have the right to know. And as Ofusa kind of takes a moment to kind of collect herself a bit while she's about to tell her backstory, essentially. I like this horizontal panel shot of Kanchichiro as he kind of looks at the camera like, yep, that's me. I'm the baby. And while we get a shot again walking through one of the corridors of the building, while Ofusa off screen is starting to tell her story, and she talks about how she used to work as a maid at Hashida, and she was only 16 at the time, and her family was very poor, so obviously her family needed the money, and that her job was to wait hand and foot on the master's son, Kantaro. And Kantaro had been bedridden since he was a small child. And we basically transitioned into the past, into Kantaro's room, with Ofusa introducing herself as Kantaro's new servant. And then what happens on the next page?
So we get Kantaro here, who looks strikingly like Gintoki.
Very, very weird.
It's really kind of... I mean, it's no wonder that this kid looks like Gintoki. I swear that these two could have been related at birth or something. But I guess that's part of the story, so we'll just roll with it. So he's like, okay, hey, new maid. Nice to meet, and then he dies.
Oh, well, shit. Wow, that was a very short backstory.
Ofusa's, of course, freaking out, and I love Sorachi's freaking out expression. She looks... I love her face in this page. She just looks completely, terrified in this. And then she's, calling for help, and then, Kantaro gets up, and he's, got the punk sign up, hey, haha, that was pretty funny, wasn't it? And then, but Ofusa's he's dead! He's dead! And Kantaro's I'm not, hello, just, turn around just a little bit, and I'm sure everything will be clear. And then she's running off, which is really difficult to do in kimono, I should point out. So she's freaking out a lot. And then Kantaro's hey, over here, turn around.
Oh god, I can hear his ghost. It's like he's still alive.
It's because I am still alive, woman! And so it's then Ofusa breaks in with the narration, and she's Kantaro, was very mischievous. He liked to play tricks on the servants.
Shit! You think?
I don't know if it was in the anime or something that, they went into detail. I'm probably wrong about this. I mean, I feel like they mentioned something about her, after I calmed down, it was not mad at him anymore, but I feel like that may have been something I'm imagining.
Yeah, I literally just watched the episode an hour or two ago. I don't think that was in there.
Yeah, so, I don't know where I thought I heard that. But yeah, and although he punked her on the very first meeting, she eventually was but he's not too bad. We were friends. And eventually, as these stories go, they fell in love.
Yeah. I don't know what the shot is. I don't know if Kantaro's holding a video camera or something, because it looks like that both in here and in the anime, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is either.
I'm going to assume that's some kind of video camera or some kind of camera or something, because that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. But what's interesting is the view after this. I like the the kind of upward view here that we're getting of the trees.
Yeah.
And I really like that Sorachi went. And then we get another view where we get a downward view of the house, but we're above in these trees. I like that transition.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's Sorachi's always very, very, very good at architecture. Probably a little known fact is he actually went to school for architecture before he became a mangaka.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I think I did hear about that at some point.
So it goes to show that, his sense of background in house design, is usually really good because he went to school for that kind of thing. But yeah, it goes, we cut to, I guess, some time later where Kantaro's hey, Ofusa, do I have to stay here in bed all day? And then, Ofusa's being a good nurse like she should be, I guess. And she's yeah, you're coughing too much. Walk's kind of out of the question today. And Kantaro's I kind of can see the light at the end of the tunnel here. There's really no point in me being so conservative when I'm going to kick the bucket any time now. I'd rather be out there having a good time and die than to stay here and live forever. And, Ofusa's Kantaro-sama, the master would be very sad to hear you saying that. He's hired a literal army of doctors to make you feel better. And then he's just and then, Kantaro, I kind of there's not much place for me here to ad-lib, but that's just because the writing's pretty good. I've always really liked this moment between the two of them. Kantaro's yeah, Dad says that, but he just wants a hair. And then he was living long, having money, are they really that important? Yes, the answer is yes. But in this case...
Metaphorically speaking, no, it's not.
Yeah, metaphorically speaking, no, but yes, in reality.
Yeah, sorry, kid, the world runs on money, unfortunately.
Yes, sadly.
Not to ruin this moment, but,
Yeah, and Ofusa agrees. Ofusa, well, I won't say she agrees, but she's more hey, you need to quit being selfish. You sound like a kid. Kantaro's maybe I do. But, I don't need any of that stuff. I'd rather be a cicada. A cicada? And Ofusa finds this hilarious. If you'd only live a week. And then he was yeah, but that'd be good enough for me. Look at them up there, and they're looking at the trees. Don't they look really happy just buzzing away with their week-long lives, having bug sex, and waiting for the next generation?
I guess that sounds like a life.
I mean, hey, it works for them.
Yeah, hey, I mean, good moment. I really liked it. But on the next page, we continue our story with more narration from Office saying that 6 months later, her and Kantaro ran away together. She knew it was wrong, but she wanted to make him happy. She wanted to get him out of the house. And, we see Office trying to get Kantaro out of the house. And they eventually found a small place together. They had very little, and they worked hard, and they loved each other, and they were happy, and that's what's important. And I guess they formed some kind of business cleaning umbrellas. I'm not really sure what they're doing here.
It's probably, first of all, this is kind of like, I can't think of a decent English equivalent. I guess you could say it's kind of like what they did back then with a mom and pop store, where they have that, how they had that whole, like, sequence of events where, like, a character or two characters will, like, get together, and then they'll have the whole, like, and I forget the word now, but essentially they're constructing and making and stuff umbrellas.
Okay.
And not so much cleaning it, yeah, that's part of the job, but basically it's the kind of thing, it's the kind of cliche you'd see in, like, old timey movies where the guy and the gal, they retire into some mom and pop store in the mountains or whatever, living happily with each other. That's the Japanese equivalent to that.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, this feels like something out of like an old Japanese movie or something.
Yeah, this is essentially, that.
I feel like from this panel alone, you can make an entire like a slice of life old Japanese film just about a couple who make umbrellas, and it's just them living their life, and they go through like these wacky, crazy scenarios or whatever, and they learn more about life or whatever, just an autobiography about them or whatever.
Yeah, and they run into customers of different types that teach them about themselves and all of that.
Yeah.
I could see it, and I feel like Sorachi could write that kind of story.
I feel like that would be a great like short series maybe or something.
Yeah, just like, a short serial, maybe no more than a volume.
Maybe even a one shot.
Yeah, I feel like Sorachi could do it. But anyway, back to their lives, or what's left of it.
Yeah. Yep, womp womp. So unfortunately, their happy lives don't last too long because Kantaro eventually has to go back to, well, I think they're still in their house, but obviously he's gotten worse because he's breathing very heavily, and Hashida is at their house now. He's finally tracked them down, and look at you, Kantaro. You should have stayed home and, stayed in bed like I told you to. But this tramp seduced you. It's all your fault. And he just keeps going on saying, well, did you think a girl like yourself could ever, be good enough for the heir of the Hashida family? Know your place, you peasant. And he basically says, after he belittles her, takes Kantaro home. And Office tries to fight back, but she just gets slapped in the face, which is unfortunate. But then, as Office is on the ground carrying her stomach, and that kind of tips Hashida off, and he basically realizes that Office is carrying Kantaro's child. But as soon as he realizes that, he orders her to abort it, to get rid of it. If word got out about this, basically how the heir to the Hashida family had a child with a peasant, that would basically drag their name through the mud because, that's important, obviously.
Obviously.
Yes, their name would be tarnished. He likes to keep up appearances. So basically, Office explains that she never saw Kantaro again. And, when the baby was born, she swore to raise it in a way that would make Kantaro happy. And we get our first shot of Kanshichiro, very tiny baby, and it's cute. And she's holding the baby as we hear a schwooft sound. And she looks over, and then what does she see?
It is Hashida. He's back. And Kantaro was the master's only son, she says. So when he died, the master tried to take Kanshichiro to be his new heir, I said it right. It goes to show you that you can do things if you don't think about them too much. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, he comes back and he's like, all right, he's like, his son died and we need an heir. So wait a second. Didn't he have a baby with some hoe in the backyard in the woods? So
his words, not ours.
His thoughts. I'm interpreting them. I'm translating them.
There you go.
But yeah, so he comes back and he wants an heir. So Ofusa's like, no. I mean, I don't know if they got married, but I lost my lover. I'm not about to lose my kid too. So he was like, which is weird to me because it's like, and I hate to poke holes in Sorachi's story, but if he showed up at the house with a bunch of really burly looking guys, how does she get away? But anyway,
that is kind of true. Maybe she's just really fast.
Yeah, I mean, and it looks, and again, I might be wrong, but it looks like it's 2 different days. So, but anyway, that's not the point. That's not what we're here for. Anyway, yeah. So she gets away somehow. And that's when she leaves, Kanshishiro with the Yorozuya. So she's like, yeah, she apologizes to the group, I wanted to save my kid and I got you guys involved, my bad and stuff. And, I'm guessing this is Shinpachi, I can't tell, but he's like, yeah, you had a tough life, huh?
It's Hasegawa.
Oh, it's Hasegawa.
They make it clear in the anime.
Yeah, this is one of those things like we discussed last time where it's super difficult to tell. I mean, and with the Japanese it would be a little easier, but yeah, Hashida sounds like a real lowlife, which that doesn't sound like a thing Shinpachi would say, so yeah. And then, Hashida's like, wait a second, for one thing, I'm here to defend myself and I'm feeling so attacked.
Guys, why are you talking behind my back? That's so cool.
Well, I'm feeling really attacked right now. I just wanted an heir to my, dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, where's my safe space?
If you guys don't understand anything, and I would really like it if you'd stop talking like you do. You don't understand what like rich, powerful Japanese people have to go through. Japanese men, I should be more clear. It's just about you, and he uses this word that I can't say as an English major. I know, but that's scullion. Killed my only son.
I'm going to assume that's a very nice way of saying bitch.
I'm going to assume that too. I've never heard it before.
I've never heard it either, but I really appreciate how they handle Hashida's dialogue.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I mean, I don't know, but oh, well, actually, looking it up, it's a servant assigned the most menial kitchen task.
Oh, well, okay, just another fancy word for maid.
Yeah,
essentially.
He should have just said maid. But anyway.
No, he has to sound all, like, English major up in here.
Yeah,
or I guess in this case, Japanese major. Yeah, whatever, who cares?
I mean, he has to sound all old-timey.
Yeah.
Great, thank goodness for being able to type with one hand. Wow, that came out wrong. Let's move on. that came out... I assure you, everyone, I don't do what I implied that I do. I don't.
Hey, look, I mean,
I'm a proper Christian loser.
It's okay. We all do it, Bomber. Like we all type with one hand and hold our meat in the other. And by meat, I mean a big delicious cheeseburger from your local fast food restaurant.
But don't eat too many of those, or they'll kill you.
Oh yes, yes. McDonald's will fucking kill you.
All right, so
we've gone on like 30 tangents. Let's continue.
It makes. I think it makes the fans know that we're people.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, he's like, the Hashidaya was supposed to go to the next generation. My life's work would have been complete, but then this low-born girl, she's, the scullion here decide to go and screw the pooch. Literally. And now I've got, which I don't get that either, because it's like, well, your son was lying around in bed, not getting better. I mean, anyway. Do you have any idea he's just like, I've been through all of this crap for my company. I mean, I hobnobbed with human scum. I betrayed my own conscience. I did everything that an evil businessman should do. And they all get places and I don't. Do you understand anything? And then Ofusa's like, yeah, and that's what your son hated about you. You sacrificed everything for some business. What do you have now to show for it? A little bit of money, a little bit of power. What's so great about that? And then, and then now Hashida gets all misogynist and says, when the ways of men are incomprehensible to women and children. And then the doors begin to close and Hasegawa's like, holy shit.
Some men, shit, that scared me.
Some men may labor their whole lives to create a single work of art. I don't know, that seems very meta. But I don't know. You look at some mangaka and I think of Oda a little bit, but anyway, then the doors shut down and that's kind of cool. I don't see Hashida with any kind of button or something to do this.
Maybe he did it with his mind.
Oh, that would be. You'd think if he had a mind to that, he could save his son, but
yeah, that's true.
The doors are closing, and he's basically explaining some men work towards art, some men spend their time with their families. He says it's different for each person. I mean, and so far, what I like about him is that although he's pretty much been he's pretty much been a son of a bitch in how he's handled things, what he's saying isn't exactly wrong, per se.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, I like that Sorachi has that kind of dualism with his characters, There's nobody that's just, I'm just the asshole to be. Well, there is one. But there's one or two. There's one or two characters like that, but most characters in Gintama are a lot like, I'm just an asshole to be an asshole, which I kind of like compared to other shonen manga.
Yeah, there's actually some, there are actually layers to the villains.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the next page, he basically continues and answers his own question, basically saying that Hashidaya, his business is basically his masterpiece, and he will sink to any depth in order to protect it, including killing a bunch of innocent children, women, and a 38-year-old man, as he basically sends his goons after them to basically finish them off. Hasegawa rapidly trying to summon the elevator. It's a lot funnier in the anime too, because you can see it animated, but it's still funny here if you notice it. And the elevator door starts to open, but Hashida doesn't pay it any mind. He's like, well, I've basically won. Nothing could go wrong. Not a single thing could go. I've won. I've basically won. Time to go back to my room, open some champagne or some shit. I don't know, whatever rich business Japanese men do. And he's walking off. His henchmen looks like they basically won until they're all blown back somehow, which surprises Hashida, who I don't know how anything could have gone wrong. It seemed like he was winning. And a certain main character guy comes out of the elevator door and is like, "Oh, is this the president's office? Am I in the right place?" And Hashida is still surprised. And obviously, who we see in a sec is Gin coming up and is like, "Now can I see you? Because I have an Appo." Get it? It's wordplay, because Appo means appointment, and I'm holding... It sounds like apple. I'm eating an apple. Isn't that funny, guys? That's the end of that chapter. Ending it on a high note.
Yeah, that was an end of chapter that I really liked, and I feel like we didn't get much of those up until now. This feels like something. It's like I said before. I always like to kind of, when I'm reading manga in tankobon format, I always kind of like to imagine, how did this look when it ran in the magazine originally? Oh, are you talking about what we were talking about in the first chapter, where it just sort of ends? Yeah. Okay, yeah, I remember that conversation. Yeah, this is the kind of page you wanna leave your readers off with when you're reading something weekly. Yeah, this is like a perfect example of where the chapter ends at a beautiful place where it's just kind of like something's we're drawn in and we want to know what's going to happen next to Gintoki and his now that he's appeared. So, and I can imagine it being in a jump with the little jump side text saying Gin's here or something like that. Yeah, something like that. And to think, Gintama so far was
was the first manga so far that included a main character with a baby on his back.
Yeah,
before Beelzebub. Which is funny because I've seen people who will watch Beelzebub when that was still running, and they'll watch Gintama and they'll be like, "Hey, they ripped off of Beelzebub," and I'm like, no, stop it, just
stop.
Get
it.
off the internet.
It's funny. It's kind of funny though, because I remember talking to somebody that I'm trying to get into Gintama, saying that this is probably the only series in Jump where, until Beelzebub, of course, where a main character can. Even with Beelzebub though, well, no, it happens with Beelzebub, but still, it's kind of like most of the characters in Jump are way too young to even consider this kind of thing, having kids, and then you have Gintoki here is just at the right age. Where, the gag of the first couple of chapters would have been creepy with any other manga character.
Yeah, but thankfully Gin is actually an adult, so it works.
Doesn't act like one, but...
No, but Sorachi's confirmed that he's in his 20s, whether that be early 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, doesn't matter. He's just in his 20s.
Yeah.
But I've just on a tangent, I've always imagined Gintoki being, at least 23. Maybe 25.
Yeah, I've always kind of pictured him being sort of closer to 25, 26 myself. Because then his whole history with the war would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
I feel like...
But, it's not like Sorachi really cares too much about making that stuff make sense, though, in terms of timeline stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't. Ages and stuff, they're just annoyances to him. Because, we still don't even know Sachan's age, which that actually bothers me.
I'm sure she's at least 20 something or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I don't know why. Every other character never really bothered me, but with her it does for some reason.
But that aside, what'd you think of the chapter?
It was a good one. All the way through, we got a lot of stuff done here. We got the background of Kantaro, Konshichiro, and Ofusa. Then we got Gintoki coming at the perfect moment. Got a couple of good panels too. This is the quintessential what I would say a Gintama chapter being 10 out of 10 would be. Stuff happened, yeah. Art was on point. It had its funny part. It was a little less funny, but that's fine. I feel like the plot regression we got made up for the fact that it wasn't quite as funny as the other ones. Yeah,
I could see that.
Yeah, and most of all the characters have been established, and we now know everybody's motive or why they're doing a thing or not doing a thing. So, yeah, I would give this one. Well, I know we're not really giving grades, but I would really say that this one is probably what a quintessential good Gintama chapter should be.
I would personally give this at least a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Not 9 being because I thought it was funny, but I do agree that maybe it wasn't as funny as the last two chapters, but that's fine. The story so far has been it's been good, and I enjoy where it's going so far. Yeah, this is definitely the point where the climax is going to happen. And then we're going to get our resolution, obviously, all of that in the next chapter. So I think we should just move on to the last chapter.
Okay.
This is the manga recap for Chapter 80. Always show up for a date 30 minutes early. So, start off on the first 3 pages for us, B.
Alright, so now, as we said before, Gintoki's walked in, and of course, nobody knows who he is. Which is really interesting to this point that he's the main character, but nobody knows what he's been doing or where he's been this whole time. So...
yeah, Gin's just usually kind of off doing his own thing.
Yeah, he just knows when he's needed, which is, I guess the quintessential shonen hero. He knows exactly what time to be there, which is interesting when you contrast it with the chapter title. He's actually more than 30 minutes late, I'm sure. But yeah, Hashida's okay, and who the devil are you? And then Gintoki's like, huh? Who am I? I am Lone Wolf, and this is Cub.
Yeah. Sorachi really apparently likes to make references to that manga quite a lot.
I have to confess I've not read it.
I'm probably more worse off than you. I have the first volume from Dark Horse on Comixology, and I still haven't read it.
Ah, jeez, yeah, you are worse off than me.
Yeah, so I think we've talked about Lone Wolf and Cub on the show before. Yeah, because they made Gin and Kagura made that reference in the Hidoro chapter. So yeah, we've talked about it on the show before. It's a pretty well known manga series from like the 70s, 80s. It's pretty old. About a samurai and his young child who I don't think he can walk. So like he always like carries him in a little wooden carriage. And it's basically just their adventures wandering around. I really do need to get around to reading it because I've seen pages from it and it looks amazingly well drawn. So
yeah, I've seen screens from it and stuff. Did it ever get an anime or anything?
I don't know if I know it's gotten a lot of live action adaptations, including one from Hollywood apparently coming up in the next couple of years or so. That's going to be interesting. But anyway, probably should continue.
Yeah, so now everybody's like, whoa, Ofusa is glad to see her son. Does yours are glad to see Gintoki. And then Gintoki's like, all right, Shinpachi, 30 words or less, go. And Shinpachi's like, no, that's just, no. But what we can do in 30 words or less, explain why you're here. Gintoki's like, nah. I do like this back and forth between them when it's just like nobody has time to really hear the whole story. So they're just asking each other to explain this as quickly as possible. And it's just kind of like, nah. No. And then so, like Hasegawa is suddenly a proper parent. It's apparent that Hasegawa wants to be a parent because he's like, dude, who brings a fucking baby to a battle with the villains? What's wrong with you? And then, like, Gintoki's like, you could do more shutting up, because I did save your life. Why are you here? In 30 words, go. Shut the fuck up! Well, that's 30. That's less than 30 words, so.
I mean, it doesn't really explain anything, but I guess you did something right, Hasegawa.
Just Hasegawa, like, I mean, he has an obvious question, which, I mean, I guess it's cool and everything, but I just love that there's that kind of, like, awareness. You brought a fucking baby into a, battle like this.
Jeez.
And then, like, somebody's explaining.
I'm pretty sure that's still Hasegawa.
Okay, that's Hasegawa. So he's like saying, "Hey, old man's trying to take the baby. He's pretty crude about it. His son knocked up the kid's mom, and now the old man's knocking her down." I mean, I read that word for word because it's just hilarious how it was stated.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
So, like, and then Hasegawa's basically like, yeah. So when the dad was alive, he didn't care anything best for the kid, but now that the son is dead, now he thinks he could just kind of snatch him. So Gintoki's like, well, it was my original intention to give this kid back to you, but I guess I won't do that now. And then Hashida's like, no, you really should, and the reason for that is because he's my grandson. So he's my heir, and I'd really like you to give him over. And then the Gintoki's like, he turns to the kid, and I love this. He's like, you know what? Whether it's grandma or mom, I mean, as long as you're out of my life, I really don't care who you go to. What's up? What you say? The kid's like, I'm not feeling Gramps. Okay. And Gintoki's like, yeah, I got you. And he just kind of tossed the baby at Ofusa.
Yeah, which babies are still developing, Gin. You should probably handle them a little better.
I mean, Gintoki knows. Like, I feel like he knows just how much the baby can handle.
Yeah, he is a pretty strong baby. I mean, he can already talk.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. clearly, I mean, Gintoki and the baby have some kind of connection that he could ask the baby who he wants to go to, and Gintoki gets it. And then, Gint's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, sorry, old dude. But he says that his mama's flat chest is preferable to yours. And then, like, Ofusa's like, excuse me, but I don't think where the fuck do you get off? We don't need to, knock an old man tits in my head, and it's all thanks to you. Thanks to...
That's pretty good.
And then, like, Hashida's like, so, what, you think you're just gonna leave? Well, actually, there's somebody like you to meet. He's on the next page, which Colton will tell you about.
Yeah, which, somebody is, slashing one of the doors, and, is slashing one of the metal doors that came down earlier. And, it comes down, and, Hashida explains that though he is blind, he is a master of EI, which, they don't really explain here. Like, from what I understand, is essentially a swordsmanship technique where, like, you take your sword out of your sheath, slice somebody, and then put it back in, all in, like, one fell swoop.
Yeah, it's basically, the sword of, it's, the longer form of it is Ei Nuki, which is literally, sword withdrawing.
Okay.
So, but it is literally that. It's like a sword play where you use fast movements to draw your blade and put it back before anyone notices.
Oh, wait, no. Hashida does explain it. He can draw his sword and kill with a single unstoppable blow. I guess that kind of explains it.
Sort of. It's a very Cliff's Notes way of explaining it, but...
Well, it's an explanation, I guess. And, he says, oh, well, meet Nizo Okada, otherwise known as Nizo the Butcher. So after he's introduced, well, I can't really say he sees Gin because he's blind, but whatever. But basically, he's like, hey, I thought we'd meet again. Destiny and all that. And Gin points out that, hey, you're the guy from the alleyway from earlier. Hey, sorry, I don't have any change for your bowl because, he looks like a hobo, I guess. That's a weird line. But, Nizo is pretty much like, oh, hey.
I mean, I guess it's kind of like a thing where blind people usually are like beggars on the side of the street and like,
I guess, yeah, that makes sense. But, Nizo makes the observation that, hey, you're not holding a baby this time, so that means I can kill you and not feel bad. But Hashida is like, hey, Nizo, we have Kanchichiro, kill them all. And, Shinpachi tries to warn Gin about how good of a swordsmaster Nizo is. But before he can do that, assumedly Nizo walks by him, and then what happens?
So Nizo kind of, he walks down the catwalk. And Gintoki bleeds a lot.
Uh-oh.
I guess he's not into fashion.
Yeah, I love the look on Gin's face, like, oh shit, I'm bleeding.
I love the panel above that where I guess that's Shinpachi. It looks like a really unfinished panel.
See, like his hair looks more like Hasegawa.
Yeah, it does.
But his glasses are clear, so it might be Shinpachi.
Yeah, but he looks completely unfinished. And I think that actually adds to it. I just love that. I mean, in this panel, like, there's action, and then there's Kagura. It's completely in character for her to just be kind of like, oh, okay. I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty
Because,
good.
nothing really phases Kagura. I mean, like, she's just like, oh.
Well, she's got nerves of steel.
Yeah, and, like, Ofusa is, like, covering, she's trying to protect her baby. Shinpachi's, like, grabbing onto the thing, and he's like, what the hell? And then Gintoki's standing there. I mean, it almost looks bad in one way, but it's actually kind of cool. I mean, mainly because I know this is Sorachi, and I guess somebody told me this about Sorachi, but I didn't really understand it. He doesn't use speed lines a whole lot, and that's a lot of the reason why this panel doesn't look as good as it could.
Yeah, like things don't really feel like they're in motion.
Yeah.
No, yeah, he doesn't really use speed lines now that I think about it.
Yeah, he doesn't. Like, when there's it's a close-up of a character in action, there's no speed lines, it's just a close-up. And I think that's a lot of reason why. I don't think Oda does either, to be honest.
No, I think Oda uses speed lines.
that'd actually be a fun thing to discuss one day. But yeah, cause I just only noticed this now because I've been doing the psych things on the weekdays, and I noticed that Fukuchi abuses them almost. so he uses them a lot. And while he does borderline abuse them, it does make the manga look like there's a lot of action going on when there's fights.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in this case, it works because, yeah, I do like Gintoki's expression, just like, did he just cut me?
But that hasn't happened in a while.
Huh. That's blood. It's interesting. Can I drink it? I mean, there's like a lot of things going on in his mind, and we're not sure of any of them. But yeah, Dinkin goes down. He's like, "Oh wait, no, this hurts." Oh wait, and then Shinpachi's like, "Insan," and then like Kanchichiro. See, the more I think about it, the harder it is to pronounce. And this is why kids, you should learn Japanese in the classroom and not like me, by translating, because then you don't know how to pronounce anything. But yeah, Ofusa's like, "Where's my baby?" Yeah, no. Nizo's like, "Come on, lady, you gotta hold on to your kids properly. You might lose them."
Yeah, he's just got Kanchichiro hanging from like the hilt of his sword. That's dangerous.
Yeah, it really is. But
the baby's just taking it like a champ. Like, "Hey, I'm up here,"
and he's like, "Oh. This is a new experience.
I'm taller than all of you."
Is this what it'll be like to grow up? Maybe I'm okay with it now. Hashida, and of course now Hashida's got the baby somehow. I guess in the anime that's more clear how that worked.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I believe he probably hands it to him. I haven't seen the anime in a while.
Or probably slings the baby over.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's playing Gin started a football game with bowling for babies, so I guess
people just like, "Hey, kick the baby."
He literally threw the baby out with the dishwater. Anyway, Hashida's like, "Yeah, I'm getting my money's worth here. This is good. I'm just gonna sit back here and watch you slaughter them, and hopefully it doesn't affect this child in the future." And then the Nizo's like, "Actually, yeah, that guy's actually kind of a badass. You might want to take your baby and, run fast." And then Gintoki's like, "Yeah,
because Nizo is bleeding from the head a little bit."
Yeah, he's I forgot to mention that. I would not make a good radio guy, but yeah, yeah, Nizo's bleeding from his forehead, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, actually, this guy's kind of badass. So you should probably take that baby and get the hell out of here before, he gets it back." And Gintoki's still holding on to his side, and he's telling, his kids, go after that kid. I mean, I can take care of things here.
Yeah, and then, basically, Shinpachi and Kaga are about to object, but Gin's like, just go! Ow! And, he says he promises to meet up with them later. And, the three of them kind of look worried, but, basically everybody runs after Hashida, and Nizo's like, "Well, are you sure? A samurai shouldn't make promises you can't keep." Trying to be a smartass. And Gin, barely holding himself together after that cut, is like, "Huh, yeah, it ain't no big thing. I'm more dependable than I look. I always show up 30 minutes early for a date." There's the chapter title.
He said they dropped the title.
He said it! And basically, they're just kind of... I think Nizo goes on a whole big thing here. There's a lot of text from him coming up. So basically, Nizo's like, "Hey, you're a lot more interesting than I thought. I so rarely get to enjoy a real fight. Few of my opponents survive my first attack." But Nizo goes on to basically explain all of his character as he's using his nasal spray again, and reveals that a childhood illness, took his eyesight, and that's about as much backstory as we get on him. And he was told that he would never be a swordsman, but in a fight that's decided with one stroke, whoever makes that first cut faster and deeper wins, whether he can see or not. So basically, the EI style was the perfect swordsmanship style for him. And he comments on how human beings are resilient creatures, the other senses grow more acute to compensate for a loss of vision. Like we sort of pointed out earlier, his other senses, obviously when you go blind, your other senses have to like make up for that and work at like 120%. And, he says, I have the nose, ears, and instincts of a wild animal, and that I see with my whole body now. I see the world more fully than ever before. And he says, hey, did you know that invisible things far outnumber the visible ones in this world? Have you ever seen what comes out of a man before, the moment he dies? I think I'm seeing souls. That's an interesting thing. Nizo says that the first time he killed a man, he saw this brightly colored thing leap out of his body. It was beautiful, like a work of art. I wanted to see it again and again, and before I knew it, people were calling me the Butcher. And as he opens his eyes and his pupils are basically white, he, with a terrifying look, he's like, "So, what color is your soul?" And Gin is like, those are some pretty cool eyes you got there, but to be able to see souls like that, that's neat. I guess I'll call you medium from now on. But what happens on the next page?
So, I mean, he's just like, Gintoki's basically mocking his ass, which is just the greatest thing. He's like, so basically you're an eyeball with a sword. That's cute. That's really cute. But I don't need special powers to see that your soul is shit colored. So, that makes me better than you, essentially. Anyone who actually, he's like, anybody that cuts people down just to see fireworks is pretty retarded.
Just killing people for fun, that's not cool.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, again, Toki's like, what's the point of, that's dumb. So you can't see anything after all. And then, Nizo's like, really? Well, everybody's entitled to your opinion. I'll just, split your skull open. And then, Nizo slides past Gintoki.
I think Sorachi kind of uses speed lines in here a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, he uses them as a part of the background, which, I guess is interesting. Yeah, he uses them as a little bit as part of the background here.
You could tell Nizo's actually, moving through the hallway.
Yeah, you could tell he's moving through the hallway and everything. I guess he uses them a little more sparingly than other manga artists then.
Yeah, because I know he doesn't use them a lot, but,
So, and then, Gintoki is basically, disarmed.
Oh no, that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna be a one-armed protagonist.
Oh.
That sucks. And he's up, he finishes his Iai Nuki. And he was like, I tried to tell you. You had to be an asshole, so I ripped your arm off. He was like, oh, was I too fast for you? Now, who's the blind guy? And I mean, Nizo's basically having a great time just mocking Gintoki.
Yeah, he's enjoying this a little too much.
Which I guess probably figures into his dub appearance. Somebody must have just been like, you know what, this guy's an asshole, but we could do better.
Yeah, Nizo's voice is probably the best in that Sentai dub. Next to Hanpeita. Hanpeita had a really cool voice in that.
I don't remember his voice. I'm going to have to watch it again.
But anyway, on the next page, as Nizo's taking out his nasal spray, again, he is really liking that stuff a little too much. I really like this panel here of Gin, who seems to be fine, just walks up to Nizo, and obviously Nizo is surprised, and Gin, as he's holding his nasal spray, is like, "Hey, what's wrong? Can't you tell an illusion from reality?" And Nizo does not like this. He's like, "No, impossible, masaka." I saw my blade cut you, which, he starts to pull out his blade, but then he realizes his sword's broken. And he realizes that during basically their first clash from earlier in the chapter is when Gin broke his blade. And so ever since then, basically before the rest of the Yorozuya left, his blade's been broken. And basically he just marvels at Gin and his abilities, and he's like, oh, he's even faster than my technique. Did I only visualize cutting him? And Gin says that Nizo's ultra-fast draw worked against him. And, it's like I said, you're blind and stupid. And he gets ready to, he's going for the wind-up, and whacks Nizo on the head and into the ground and says, open your eyes and see the world, you idiot. And this is a really great page.
Yeah, we get more speed lines again. So,
yeah.
I mean, this time they're not really speed lines as much as impact lines, which I do remember. I feel like Sorachi uses them less now.
Yeah, like I remember his, like, definitely his current style is a lot cleaner, I think. Yeah,
definitely.
But I really like some of these panels here on this page where, like, I like it when manga has, like, sets of panels that, like when you read them, it feels like there's a camera slowly panning to the other side of the shot.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Because this panel of Gin holding like Toya, like, you can see his arm holding his sword, and then another panel right next to it with seeing Gin's back, and, like, you can obviously see that, like, these two panels are meant to be like one shot, but, like, as you read them, your eyes are sort of the figurative camera, as, like, because obviously you're moving from one panel to another.
Yeah, I like that too. Like, it's a sequential framing thing that's really, really nicely done. That it works more like a storyboard than a manga.
Yeah,
a little bit. I mean,
good.
This one is less so like that. This one's still kind of manga-ish to the fact that it splits Gintoki's arm over two panels. If it were more of a storyboard, then you'd have one panel with Gintoki holding a sword and maybe another one from a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
Like, there's one manga artist in the Sunday talkback that does this a lot with his stuff, where it's like it'll be 4 panels on one page, and each panel slightly, maybe it's like a character turning their head, and each panel's like represents the head in motion. So, but yeah, Gin, like, slams the shit out of Nizo.
Yeah, that looked like it hurts, but that's the end of that fight, essentially.
Yeah, and which is interesting because Nizo, you'd think after all of that, the Nizo would take more to go out with, would take more to be defeated, but
yeah, they really did kind of build him up a little bit.
Yeah, they did, but for now he's out of commission, and now we go to another fight, sort of. Hashida versus Ofusa.
Oh shit, it's on top of a roof too.
Yeah, it's on top of a roof. All we need some fire. And it'd be perfect. But anyway, Hashida's running, and he's Hashida wa Hashidu. Throwing some Japanese there for
I
you.
get it. I get the joke.
Yeah, Hashida wa Hashidu. And then now we've got, he's at the edge of the roof. And it's funny. I mean, I guess he's an old man, so it makes, I guess, and she's a young woman. I'm like, you backed yourself on a corner of a roof to run away from this woman. I would think that you wouldn't have to do all of that. I mean, 'cause that's pretty dangerous. That you and your heir both die, then this whole thing would be nothing.
Why didn't you just, like, run out of your building and try to hide? I guess we have to make things more dramatic. That's probably why.
I guess this makes things more dramatic. But I'm just kind of like, you would think you'd be more careful because you and your heir.
Like, was he planning on, like, dangling the baby over the roof? I don't know if he really thought this through or not.
I don't think. I don't think that Hashida really thought this through, because it's like this. I mean, and hey, we're going through all of this, but we love Gintama, 'cause we love Gintama enough to be able to point out some questionable decisions. I mean, I know it's probably just for the whole sake of drama, to make the whole scene dramatic between the two of them. But you would think that with your heir and yourself dangling close to the edge of a bridge, that you would avoid that.
Yeah, I don't know what made him thought that was a good idea.
Especially since it's not like, apparently your guards are nowhere to be found, and it's one woman.
Well, I mean, Gin pretty much killed all of them.
I guess that's fair.
He only had about, like, 5-10 guards. You can only hire so many.
That's true, I guess. But still, it's just one woman. You think that, anyway, putting aside the strange circumstances of their situation, Hashida's like, this is my grandkid too, Fofusa. I mean, Hashida is mine as well. I'm not letting anyone take them away from me. And Fusa's like, to hell with all of that. I just want my son. Hashida's like, you took my kid. I'm just taking yours. I feel like we've reached a crossroads here. I mean, why? Why are you getting upset? It's one kid for another. Equivalent exchange, woman. Read Fullmetal Alchemist. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
It's a pretty good series. Like, I don't know how you haven't read it yet or watched it.
I mean, and it's just like, you want the Hashida and everything, even though Ofusa's basically said, I don't give a shit about your company. And then, and then she's like, you want to take my company and my grandchild? And she's like, well, wait. This isn't how you talk with a kid in your arms. And then he's like, babies don't understand anything. Well, clearly you haven't been paying attention to this baby talking this whole time. And then, Ofusa's like, babies remember lots of things, especially when they're being held gently. Kantaro used to talk to me about it. He was like, and then we get a flashback again. There were flowers, and this is apparently his mom's funeral procession, funeral procession. And, she says she recalls how Kantaro told him that there were flowers and an altar and a picture of a beautiful woman.
I don't know how he remembered all that as a baby, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't know either.
That baby has a really good memory.
That guy had a really good memory. I mean, like, yeah, she's like, we'll survive, and it's Hashida. He's telling baby Kantaro, listen, we'll get through this. I'll cook. I'll change diapers. I don't know. Oh, he's actually talking to his dead wife. I'll cook. I'll change his diapers. I don't know how to do that, but I'll make it. So, please, make it to heaven safely. I will protect Kantaro and Hashidaya. And then, we fade back to the present.
Yeah, good like parallel panels here.
Yeah, and one thing I really love is the update of the character designs between the two of them. Like, you can definitely tell that this isn't just, I colored his hair white a little bit, and then I colored his hair white, now he's old. No, there's lines on Hashida's face.
Yeah, like, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more later after the manga, but like they look like two totally different people.
Yeah, and you can tell. I mean, and one thing I think that this really does real nicely is it does show us. It goes back to what I was saying about how Gintama villains aren't just one-dimensional. Hey, I'm going to stand in your way for this arc to make it more interesting. You can see through the aging that Hashida's like he's been through a lot. As you point out, he looks like two different people. And I can only imagine that maybe when the wife was alive, the Hashidaya wasn't a big, it was maybe a little company or something. I mean, this is all speculation.
Well, I mean, Katsura did mention how Hashidaya was sort of like just a little ma and pa shop or whatever, but they made kimonos, and then through the decades and as times changed, the company changed. So the company's been around for a long time. I'm assuming probably before the Amanto came in.
Yeah, I think that's safe to assume too, but you can see the struggles that Hashida had raising his kid and doing his work.
Yeah, you could tell he's probably not as well off as he is now.
Yeah, when back then when his wife died and he was left with his son, you could tell, there was kind of like this. He went through a lot, and it shows in his face now. And we go to Ofusa, and she's like, "What happened to that man? Do you think that what you're doing would make Kantaro and your wife happy?"
That's a good shot at the bottom of them on the roof in the middle of sunset.
Yeah, I really like Sorachi
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think some of those shots especially look really good in the anime too, actually.
It's funny, not to get too much off on a tangent, it's funny, I was actually doing research for anime background companies,
Yeah.
For a friend of mine, and I posted this on Twitter of several companies that do just backgrounds. They don't do any animation.
Oh, okay.
And Gintama has one of the better ones, YAP Ishigaki Enterprises. And yeah, I've been to their site and they have some gorgeous background shots, including Gintama.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, because that's one thing I've always loved about the Gintama anime. Even back when the animation wasn't so great, the backgrounds were always really good.
Oh, yeah, I can agree with that.
Anyway, next page.
Yeah, so, I almost forgot his name for a second. Hashida, just kind of, it's just kind of
brain farted there, huh?
Yeah, he's just kind of taking everything in, and then he starts talking to Ofusa, saying that Kantaro was always sick. You know, the doctor said he'd be lucky to see 25, and he kind of thinks back on him spending time with his wife when she was alive, and he says that, you know, when she heard all of this, she said that you know, if Kantaro was only going to live a third as long as everyone else, you know, that they should make sure that he laughed 3 times as much. He should live like the cicadas, happily buzzing their short lives away. So apparently, Kantaro and his mother have the same ideology on life, or view on life, I guess. And you know, Hashida clearly admits that he did not think the same way as either of them. You know, he hired all these doctors and raised his son like a bird in a cage. And, you know, he says that, you know, he wanted his son and his wife to live, you know, no matter what the cost, as he, I'm assuming, is seeing his son die or something, because he still looks kind of old in this shot, so.
Ah, okay.
But, like, he's just kind of sitting on the roof, you know, just talking about life at this point. And, you know, he reflects on everything and says, you know, he's lost everything, and I broke all my promises. And, little baby Kanchichiro starts grabbing for Grandpapa's chin, and he's like, hey man, it's all cool.
I'm cool with you. You're okay.
You know, you're not so bad. But, you know, Hashida is obviously taken aback by this, and Ofusa crouches down towards him and says, you know, you haven't lost everything. You know, Kanchichiro is, you know, he's still my child, but, you know, he's still also your grandson. So next time, you know, come see us not as the president of Hashidaya, but as a loving grandfather. And we'll even have snacks together. And, you know, Hashidaya is very touched, and he starts sobbing. And Gin and everyone else is basically looking on. And Hasegawa's like, hey, moms, right? They're so cool. And Gin is like, why are you wearing a diaper? And that's a great joke to end off such a nice, touching scene on.
Right. And it's just, and like Hasegawa's like kind of casually smoke, like, yeah, you know, moms are great, aren't they? You know, I miss mine. Everybody's kind of just staring at his diaper like, uh-huh. Seems like you miss her a little too much. You know, I really love that page.
Yeah, it's good. But, last 2 pages.
Okay. So, now it's Ofusa. She's telling everybody, you know, saying her farewells, thanking them for what they did for us. And then Hasegawa's just like, yeah, you know, you could conveniently forget the part where I lost my human dignity. Okay.
That's funny. You're funny, Hasegawa. You suck.
You know, they're all like, they're just kind of punking him now, and, you know, Gid's chugging some strawberry milk, and then he's like, hey kid, you know, like strawberry milk? Kanchichiro's like, I could take it or leave it. He's like, I guess I was like, oh, milk's not good enough for you? Well, you got a little while before you'll be able to drink sake. By then, you'll have hair spreading out from all kinds of places. I look how crass he is with this kid. I mean, not that the kid understands, I guess, but it's just funny to me.
Yeah, he's just talking about his privates like it's just okay. Like, how do you think that makes the baby feel? I mean, the baby probably doesn't feel much of anything, but
Yeah, it's just funny to me that he's talking to maybe like he's talking to one of his friends or something. And then, next page, he's like, Kentucky pats him on the head. Well, or tussles his hair. Well, when you're a little older, yeah, let's hang out. You can still drink whatever you want back when that happens. And then he was like, yeah, and I like this echo back to Nizo, where he's like, a samurai doesn't make a promise he can't keep.
Well, there you go.
I don't know if Gintoki is using that phrasing on purpose to kind of mock Nizo, or if it's just kind of like Nizo's actually sort of right. I shouldn't make promises I can't keep. In a way, it could be. I think it's kind of a bit of both.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's kind of a bit of both, where he's just kind of like, haha, Nizo, and at the same time, he's like, yeah, I gotta be around for this kid to, no matter what happens to me in the future, this is a promise I'm making, we're gonna hang out, which means I gotta survive whatever comes at me. Then we get another nice Gintoki-ism, laugh a lot, cry a lot, and grow up quick. I'll be waiting. And then, Gintoki gets up from the bench and walks away, and for the first time, Kanshishiro is, like, crying.
Oh my god, he looks so sad.
I mean, he does. It looks like he's lost his dad all over again.
He's like, no, not another one.
Come on, Mom, can't you keep one of them? And then, he's crying throughout the whole arc. This baby has just been kind of like mini Gintoki.
Yeah.
Nothing seems to bother him much, but as soon as Gintoki leaves, he's in tears. And he, Fusa's even comments on this, like, what's making you cry? He never cries. I think Gintoki's like, don't. And then, you can hear the cicadas chirping. It's like, stupid bugs.
And that's the end of the arc.
Yeah, we made it through somehow.
Yeah, somehow. Only took us an entire weekend.
Yeah.
Probably took us at least like 12, 15 hours, but it's okay. So what'd you think of the chapter, B?
I thought it was another really strong one. I mean, I can kind of see why people prefer the anime though, because I just feel like it's even at its worst, the anime just like does this thing with Sorachi's art and the paneling that brings the story to life. And more so than just, I mean, I know the argument anybody would make is like, duh, that's what any anime does. But it's just something about Gintama that I don't know if it was just Takamatsu, I think by this, yeah, no, it's still Takamatsu.
Yeah, it's still Takamatsu. Takamatsu's still around until like episode 100.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's just a Takamatsu understand. Well, I mean, technically Takamatsu's around all of the time. He's just no longer the director. He becomes the supervisor and then the head chief or whatever, which basically means I don't know what that means, honestly.
He probably doesn't do too much.
Yeah, he probably just overlooks things and makes sure that it looks. I mean, he hasn't actually drawn an episode in a while for the series.
He's there to make sure that Gin actually looks like Gin. Yeah,
and now that's Fujita's job. He actually did that for the last series when Miyawaki took over. So.
I'm pretty sure I saw Takamatsu had some kind of credit.
Yeah, he's like the chief of something, which generally speaking is like he doesn't really do anything. But I mean, I guess sort of if they have, I guess he just supervises things. I know Fujita took his job or his old spot that he had when Fujita was director.
I would assume Fujita is a lot more. He's still more involved than Takamatsu, though.
Yeah, he's still more hands-on, definitely. I mean, I think he probably did draw. Actually, I could probably check that while I'm talking. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Takamatsu still drew a couple episodes of the last series, but he just wasn't in a directorial position anymore. So, but yeah, I mean, the arc itself, I mean, I definitely feel like the anime did it a lot of justice, but this manga version was pretty good. I enjoyed, like, actually, yes, Fujita drew the second episode of, he was a storyboard artist for the second episode of the 2015 Gintama.
Okay.
So yeah, he's still around. And the, seventh. But anyway, yeah, I think that this arc was really good in character development, even though not much happened. Like, it's not like any of the characters changed or really grew much. I feel like we got to know them a lot better. I mean, or not even really a lot better. It's just to a point that it's like, okay, we see that Gintoki's pretty good with kids. We see that, we got Kanshishiro, and I mean, Edo got a little bit bigger too. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like one of those arcs where it's like, if you really sit down and analyze it, not much of note happened. But if you look at it from a point of view of just like, hey, the world of Gintama is now a little bigger, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I think before I talk about my thoughts on the arc, I think this chapter was pretty good overall. I always we kind of talked about this off mic a little bit. I always, every time I revisit this arc, I always forget how Nizo and Gin's final clash goes, because we have that reveal of, oh, Nizo's sword got broken like pages ago, and I always I guess that's kind of neat. I don't know. I think it would have made more sense if, because I don't see how Nizo just thought, oh, I cut off this dude's arm, unless he was just really into the fight and was just so sure he was gonna win that somehow that had some kind of placebo effect on him. I don't know. Maybe Nizo was just really delusional and that's how that works. But what I think it would have made more sense if maybe somehow Gin's arm flying off and landing, I think maybe it would have been a cooler reveal if maybe Nizo mistook that, maybe mistook his blade being chopped off as a severed limb somehow. I feel like you would have to maybe kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit still with that, but I feel like that would have made a little more sense than, oh, his blade was just broken the entire time.
Yeah, I think that, well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but I think the way it's done here is supposed to feed into that metaphor of, oh yeah, you're blind and you have all these heightened senses and stuff, and you're a badass swordsman, but you're still blind. Yeah. You can't actually, you still can't see what's in front of you because you're blind, and that's the metaphor. So I guess we had to emphasize that, but still.
Yeah, I agree with you, because it's Sorachi had this kind of thing at some points in the manga where it's kind of yeah, it's a shonen manga, and I understand we're supposed to suspend our disbelief a little bit. I mean, I do think that sometimes he just kind of cheeses it to a point that he really shouldn't. Because this was definitely one that was kind of you really had to kind of.
Personally, I think there are bigger offenses than this.
Yeah, definitely are.
That still to this day kind of boggle my mind a little bit, but this one isn't as offensive. I just think, it works, I guess. I don't really have a problem with it per se. I just think if Sorachi did it another way, it still could have worked. And it still could have made sense.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Definitely, I wholly agree with you that there are bigger offenders to our sensibilities than this. But, it's, I could kind of see this one working okay. It is kind of weird that Nizo would mistake the one thing for the other, but I guess I could kind of see it if you look at it from a point of view of oh, he was just so arrogant that here's this guy talking shit, that cutting him down shouldn't take more than it shouldn't take any longer than it does to make ramen. And so
the guy thinks he can see souls.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I clearly, he's a little bit unbalanced. So, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. That it didn't bug me so much with this fight, but yeah, there are definitely worse offenders.
No, yeah. I don't know, I thought the fight was fine. I'm just saying I also wouldn't have minded if it went another direction.
Yeah, I get you.
But as is, I think it's fine. Again, Sorachi pulls off weirder twists that I just don't understand. But we'll get to those when we get to those. Yeah. So I will probably rant for at least 15 minutes about some of those. So, Hashida is a character. I'm actually kind of I'm really, you know, he's not like the best villain ever, but I'm actually really surprised because I keep forgetting how sort of multifaceted he is. Like he's not just a bad guy, and he's not just some big bad leader of a big rich company. Like he was one of us at one point. He was just a common man trying to basically live his life and protect his family and keep his family together.
Yeah.
You know, he was a good man at one point, and, you know, being in the world of business for as long as he was and trying to get by and trying to survive, you know, made him a cold person. Basically just he turned into this completely different person, and like he kind of lost sight of what was important.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a good kind of metaphor for that whole sense of, losing sight of the forest, because I've completely butchered that phrase. But I mean, it is kind of like, he had a noble goal in sight and lost himself trying to get it. And even though he achieved everything, it's like he went overboard, I guess, in trying to achieve that.
But basically for him, the ends justify the means.
Yeah, exactly. And at one point, the old Hashida probably wouldn't have thought that way. He would have just been like, no way, I can't do that, but then success became more important than how he achieved it. So, yeah, I liked him for that as a villain too, because he very well could have gone in a different direction, but luckily Sorachi managed to avoid that. So, which is nice. I mean, and it made him believable.
Yeah, I think for a one-off character, he's actually surprisingly a very strong character.
Yeah,
in my opinion, he's very well written, along with Ofusa and Kantaro. Even like I feel like all the one-off characters here are like, for the little time we get to spend with them, they're like, when you think about them, I think personally, I think they're all very well written, strong characters.
Yeah,
and they all have very, very good moments.
Yeah.
Like I still really like Ofusa's moment at the beginning of the last chapter, where like, she's going to risk losing a part of her body. Like she's basically going to risk herself and her safety to keep her son safe. Like that is such a good moment for her.
Yeah, I really liked that too. And she did it with such defiance. I mean, you could tell she was afraid, but that wasn't going to stop her from, I kind of wonder if Hashida would have actually went through with it if things hadn't turned out the way they did.
I don't know. It looks like he was pretty close. I think he probably would have actually done it.
Yeah, I saw.
But technically, his goons would have done it. But still,
yeah,
here or there.
I mean, I feel like I don't know. I feel like he might not have. I don't know. Just something about me just made me think, oh well, maybe this is a scare tactic, and we'll never know. But this is just me supposing. I mean, because look how easily he gave up in the end.
That's true. Yeah.
He didn't, like, it wasn't this whole long argument. It was just literally Ofusa saying, hey, your son and your wife wouldn't like you if they knew what you were doing. And that was enough for him to back down. So,
like, personally, out of everything I've covered on the show so far, I think the characters from this arc, from this one-off story, I think kind of impressed me the most. I think for one-off characters in particular, I think some of these characters, including Hashida as a villain, I think are like, I feel like I'll remember these characters. Like, I feel like these characters, again, for a one-shot story, I feel like really left kind of an impression on me in some way, shape, or form. Whereas, I mean, if we're talking about like the anime, I feel like I have a hard time remembering a lot of one-off characters from like the first 50 episodes in particular. Like if I had to think of one, I feel like she's off the top of my head. The dying old man from like chapter 11, who like knew Otose as a young girl and had a crush on her. We never got a name for him, by the way.
Yeah, so let's say I don't think that guy had a name even.
We on the podcast called him Lucky, ironically. And then there was the fireworks dude, the really old guy who had a sick wife or whatever.
Ah, okay. I actually watched that one recently with Jetchan, so I do remember that one.
So there are characters like that. Like, they're not bad characters, but like, I don't, like, I'm never gonna think about them again just because, like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like these characters, I'm really surprised and very pleased with just, like, I feel like these are some of Sorachi's strongest one-off characters so far.
Yeah, it definitely is kind of a reflection of the power of a name.
Yeah.
It's just like, because all the characters you mentioned, for the most part, weren't given names.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that kind of illustrated their point of the plot, which is just kind of like, here's a situation for the Yorzuya to be in. We need these characters to function as kind of like a fulcrum, gear to get this situation moving. Okay, situation's been resolved. I mean, they don't need a name for much more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, but then you get other characters where it's funny because, like, I know I usually kind of get on Sorachi about this, but where he'll data dump a bunch of stuff on a character in like a beginning of one chapter.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets kind of difficult to get all the information together.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember another one I just watched recently with Jetchan was the arc where Gintoki lost his memory. And they had Mamushi Bonzo, I think was his name.
I think so, yeah.
And, at first he did come off as a typical, unlike Hashida, if we're going to compare them, like, he did come off as a villain, but his
motivations were kind of more for laughs. Like, he was kind of a joke.
They were for laughs, but in the same way that you could kind of understand. Sorachi played it up for laughs, but in a way they were kind of understandable. Like, he was laid off by the government.
Yeah.
And he was only trying to, like, inspire his son to leave the house, and then finding out that he got laid off only made things worse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, but the guy had a name, and he kind of had a backstory, even if it was thrown at us, and it was kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
But, I mean, compared to Hashida, who was obviously more played seriously, I think definitely the power of the name is important.
I mean, and I also feel like Hashida's growth as a person is a little more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Mamushi didn't really have any growth. He was just kind of defeated.
Yeah.
And then they kind of left, so...
Yeah, he's kind of a joke. We're not really supposed to be super interested in him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, good one-off characters this arc. I really appreciate that, honestly. But I think that's about it for, like, for the chapter. As far as the arc goes, I really like this arc. It's fun and it's cute. I love it.
I have to say it's a wonderful arc. I really like this one. Like, it's kind of a precursor to later sort of Gintama arcs too, where it starts off as a really kind of gag, and then becomes something slightly more
and
substantial later.
Yeah, then you find out, like, there's actually some shit going on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the first chapter is mainly just everybody reacting to Gintoki possibly having a child.
Yeah. Not to give away too much, since we're still a bit of a ways away. Well, I mean, we're getting closer and closer, but we're still realistically probably a couple of months from actually covering this arc. But Benizakura sort of starts the same way. I mean, it starts off on more of a bang, but I mean, comparatively, I'll just say that. But Benizakura kind of has some of those elements too, where it's like, oh, I guess we got a job finally. And then it turns into this, like, this bigger thing.
I mean, I feel like,
and it turns into more than just an odd job they're getting paid for.
Yeah, I feel like that's how all of the Gintama arcs start. Even the recent ones. Well, not even recent at this point, because it's amazingly enough, it's been 2 years. But,
oh yeah, that's right.
But yeah, the last arc that before we got into, basically the shit cloud that we're in now, it started the same way. It started out with a bang again, but then it started, well, actually, no, it was a little bit more tightly coiled than, like all the other arcs that they started, and we got comedy for at least 1-2 chapters, and then they got to be something more like after that. But the last arc,
more substantial.
Yeah, it started off with a bang. And although we did get some comedic moments out of it, those were gone almost right away.
Yeah, Benizakura's kind of sort of the same way, except there was still some comedy in the Rakio arc to here and there. It wasn't completely devoid of it, but,
Yeah.
it wasn't there as much still.
I mean, I would say the Silver Soul arc, which is exactly what the wiki has it called, which is the final arc.
Yeah.
The Silver Soul arc has actually had more humor than Rakio.
I'm glad about that, not to go on too much of a tangent about the final arc. I'm really glad the final arc has some comedy in there, because I think, as much as I like serious Gintama, and I enjoy it, even I kind of have to admit, like, I really miss the comedy, and I welcome it back with open arms.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass for me to translate, but
I'm tired of Gintama making me cry all the time.
I mean, it makes me cry in a different way when it's a comedy arc.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So it's like, because like this week's chapter was full of text, so it's like, I mean, I'm crying. I mean, I'm crying and I'm laughing and crying at the same time. So.
But yeah, like it's kind of like what you said. Like this arc doesn't really have, in terms of like what it really contributes to the overall story or whatnot. There's not a lot of room for analysis here. But like, I think just as a story arc of Gintama the manga, I think it's pretty good. Like I don't really have any complaints. Like, and even like because. Every time I have Josh on, he's very quick to, and I mean, I'm not shitting on Josh again, as much as I like to, but like when I have Josh on, he's very quick to take a look at the panel layouts and whatnot. And it's funny, every time I have him on, it's for like the really sort of crappier looking Gintama chapters. Not that they're like drawn badly. I mean, sometimes they're a little sketchy, but like sometimes the panel layouts at this point can be a little cluttered and they don't work as well. And I mean, we talked about it a lot during the Go Ninja arc, and even like the last episode when we talked about Hattori's old man and him playing Kick the Can and whatnot. Even though I really like that chapter, I could admit that in terms of its panel layout, it's not really the best, and it could have been a little better in places. Go Ninja was a little had a few more problems here and there, but I really like a lot of the panel layout for a lot of this arc. Like, I really didn't notice anything too egregious.
Yeah. I mean, this is early on Sorachi too. I mean, this is his first serial, and it's early on. I mean, it's still pre-chapter 100. So. Yeah, this is before his second year of doing it. And I mean, I find that most mangaka, of course, it differs per person, of course. But I find that most of them kind of get into their groove within the third year, especially the weekly ones.
Yeah.
That's when, like, the character designs kind of, like, settle into something, although they change, because, I mean, Yoruzuya Soul has this really nice compilation of the character designs through the chapters.
Yeah, Sorachi goes through a lot of evolution.
Yeah, he gets to this point where he's like, I mean, and it's clear that he gets to a point where he's, like, really comfortable drawing the characters. And then that's where, because with any manga, obviously you got the character designs that you come up with when the series begins, and then as time goes by, you get better and better at like drawing them faster and getting more comfortable how you want a character to look, and then finally until you get to a point where you're like able to draw the character perfectly every time and very quickly. So, I mean, and then at that point, I feel like then the manga artist will try to do things like, tackle different angles, tackle different panel work and stuff like that. But at first, you gotta get the character drawing down. And that can, again, take up to 3. I feel like 3 years is a generous estimate for most manga artists. Yeah. If you last about that long. And obviously, even after that, art can still evolve. So, I mean, because definitely, if you look at Sorachi's current artwork compared to even now, it's almost like looking at it and being like, did he get a different guy to draw this? So.
Oh, God, yeah. Sorachi's art looks pretty amazing almost always now, or at least, like, super well done and consistent.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like he's never really been a big, like, panel work guy, because again, he tells the story through words. So I don't think
he's gotten better at telling story through the visuals, though.
Yeah, he's gotten better at it, and I feel like a lot of that might have just come from the fact that now he's at a point of the story where he's got to be able to tell the story that way. He can't rely on a bunch of text anymore. That works for a joke gag. That works for gags, but it doesn't work so much for, action scenes.
Yeah, and even within this arc, he kind of does a little bit of that here and there too, like we discussed in the beginning of the arc. I don't remember him doing a lot of that during like any of the other arcs we've covered on the podcast. Probably not during the memory loss arc, or probably not even through like Umibozu, at least not that I can remember. Or at least nothing that stood out to me, I guess. But yeah, he did a little bit of that in this arc. And I haven't read Benizakura in the manga at all. When I get to it on the podcast, it'll be my first time reading it all the way through. But I want to believe that he will probably do at least a little bit of that during Benizakura too, especially since it's very action focused too. So
yeah.
But the arc was good. No complaints, I don't think.
No, I can say I enjoyed it.
I mean, it doesn't really, like, have a lot of connection to the overall story, I don't think, except for maybe one thing that we'll get to when we get to it. One dangling thread. But if you took that out, yeah, it's still a pretty much complete one-shot episodic story, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done, and I enjoyed it. And sometimes that's all you can really say about Gintama is that, hey, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I guess one more thing I wanna put out there that, like, I've seen other people theorize and talk about, but like as we're kind of getting near and nearer the end of the manga at the time of this recording, I really hope that before the manga ends, or maybe like on the very last chapter, that like we maybe get a time skip or something, and maybe Sorachi brings back Kanshichiro as like an adult. I don't know if Sorachi has any intention of doing that, or has maybe completely forgotten about this arc altogether, but I think that would be amazing if he made that. Like, that would be probably the best callback in the entire series, in my opinion.
I'm kind of iffy on time skips, just because it's become a common thing in shonen manga now for when they're
but
ending.
I mean, I think it's going to happen like at the very end of the series. I don't think we're going to get one until the arc is completely over.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping
at least for an epilogue.
Yeah, for epilogue, maybe. I feel like Sorachi could handle it, as long as he makes sure that everything is done before that. Like, whatever he's going to do will be finished. I mean, I'm really, because I remember during that arc, during a specific arc, like, a lot of people thought that it was going to be a time skip, because there was no other way to do it, and I was really happy. I'm proud of the Gorilla for not ever really doing a time skip. He's always managed to keep the whole series, pretty much on I guess a year. I'm not really sure if it's been more than that, but yeah, at least it hasn't been 6 months. See if anybody gets that joke. But anyway, I don't know, but I would like to see that. I would be fine with in the end, Kanshichiro coming back.
I want some kind of nod, because I feel like it would be a great note to end off. Maybe not to completely end off on, but I want it to come back somehow.
Yeah, it would be nice to see him back.
But I mean, go ahead.
Even if it's just like a slight nod, like, yeah, I remember.
Old man Gin is walking down Edo, and he just passes by a guy, and he's like, "Hey, you look like me. Hey, you look like me. Eh." Like, that would be great, and I'm sure, like, that would probably piss a lot of people off, like, "Oh man, you could have done more with that," but like, even if it was something like that, I would accept it.
Yeah, I would be fine with that if that's all they did. It was just kind of like, Mom, why does that guy look like me? I don't know. And then like,
but Ofusa knows.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say she like gives Gin a nod, and she knows, and then Gin looks at her and he gives her a nod. Like, they both know. But then, for whatever reason, they decide to just like keep it to themselves. It's like, Mom, do you know something about that guy? It's really creepy how similar to me he looks. Is
that my dad? I mean, at the same time, it's probably more likely that Sorachi will probably not do anything with that. And if he doesn't, I'd be kind of disappointed a little bit, but I would get over it.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold it against him if he didn't.
But I mean, like, I said the same thing about certain characters that I never thought he'd bring back, and it looks like he's going to be bringing back some of them. I don't want to say who, but it's just, yeah, I don't know. Sorachi's proven me wrong before, so I don't know. Maybe he'll do it. I'd like him to, but we'll just have to see. But we should probably end the recap right here before we go on for another 50 minutes. So that was the Infant Strife arc. We did it. We covered the whole thing.
Yeah, we're alive too.
Yeah, we're alive, and we'll probably podcast more. I don't know. I'm pretty sure we will. I don't know what the hell I was trying to say. Okay, so we should probably talk about where people can buy Gintama, just in case you've been living under a rock and you don't know. First off, Gintama did have a somewhat, it went on long enough, I guess I can't call it short. Gintama used to be released from Viz. It's technically available in English, first 23 volumes, but, you could still buy them if you want to. Maybe you listened to this whole podcast and didn't follow along with us. I really hope you weren't too confused about what was going on then. If you want to read this arc for yourself, you can buy volume 10 of Gintama from viz.com/gin-tama, and Viz will be so nice enough to give you a couple of links as to which online retailers you could buy the Gintama manga from, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, all that stuff, etc. But, unfortunately, Gintama is not available digitally. I would really like to have that option. So, if you guys really want to be able to read Gintama digitally, you can always drop Viz a line on Twitter over at Viz Media. At Viz Media is their handle, in case it wasn't obvious. So, just let them know politely, hey, I would be very interested in buying Gintama digitally if you were to do so. Don't be too demanding, be nice. Just let them know you're interested, and they listen. They read their tweets. They keep track of what their fans want. Whether we'll get it or not, I have no idea, but it's always worth letting them know what you want. And I think that's about it for the manga recap, and we should move on to the next thing.
Okay, let's hit it.
This is the life lessons segment for lessons 79 and 80. We're first going to start off with lesson 79. If you want to see someone, make an appointment first. Yeah, making appointments is very tedious and tiring.
Yeah, I'm going through my own appointment-related worries right now. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I can totally identify with that.
Yeah. Not really much to say about this one. Other than, yeah, like, it's a thing that you have to do, and it sucks. It's really annoying. Especially when, like, I don't know, they put you on a wait list or some shit. I don't know. Do people do that? I think they do.
I guess it depends on where it is you're going. I mean, like college?
I guess. So, tough question here, B.
Yeah.
How does this relate to the chapter?
Making an appointment, huh? I mean, other than the fact that it allows Gintogi to make that joke, I don't really think it applies too much.
No, sure doesn't.
Yeah.
They tell him to make an appointment, he makes a joke, and then he leaves, and that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, I mean, I think that it's one of those ones where it's definitely like Sorachi was just like, oh, I don't know what to call this. Oh, well, I'll call it this. So then I could relate it to that one joke and that's it, Yeah,
pretty much. So I think the chapter title makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, okay. And then we're gonna go on to probably the toughest one. Lesson 80. Always show up for a date 30 minutes early. So before we get into the meat of this chapter and like really talk about how this is related. I think this is just good advice from Sorachi.
Yeah. And
I can relate to this because I'm very punctual about things when I want to be. I can't say that about today because we meant to record a little earlier in the day, but then I was like, I want to go eat, and then I realized, I'm not actually done watching the anime before we record, so I kept Bomber waiting for like another hour.
Yeah, I went grocery shopping and had my own food in the time it took you to know I'm kidding. I mean, yeah, I actually woke up early and went out to go grocery shopping just so I wouldn't be late for this. So I woke up early on this Sunday for you, damn it.
Yeah, there aren't too many people I would do that for either, so I can understand that, especially since usually the night before I'm always working from like 4 to 1, so I'm like working 9 hours, and then I get home and like shower and maybe eat something, and then I end up actually falling asleep at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, I was up pretty late last night too, so that's a thing. But for different reasons.
No, it's funny just while we're talking about my life and how when I wake up, when I woke up this morning, like I for some reason I thought it was at like 11 something, but like I didn't want to get up. I was still kind of tired, but then like 20 minutes later I was like, okay, fine, I guess I'll get up. I look at my phone and it's like 9:30. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm up like 2.5 hours early. Sure, whatever. So I was just like, I'll just get up. Whatever. I'm not really tired anymore anyway.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing where it's like, that's how I was. I'm always up at like ass crack o'clock. So, I mean, like I was up at ass crack o'clock this morning, got some reading in, and I was just like, okay, I should probably eat food before, just in case we end up talking like 2 million years, then
which is probably going to happen.
And yeah, basically. I mean, then we end up talking for 2 million years, and then I'm sneaking out at 8 o'clock to get food. And like, yeah, I was like, let me go do that. Then I need to get some stuff. I need to get some groceries because now I gotta completely change how I eat. Or maybe, I don't know, I might be overreacting about a thing, but for now, I went ahead and got myself some healthy-ish food. So yeah, and then I sat here munching on my healthy-ish food, and
yeah, I need to start eating healthier. Honestly, I could probably eat more fruit.
Yeah, you don't want to be like me, an old man worried about whether if it's death peeking around the corner or happiness. So yeah, but yeah, with the Gintama title again, I think it's one of those ones that was just like Sorachi basically used it for a joke, for a one-time joke.
Yeah, so guys, get a load of this. So, I know, the common man won't be able to see how this is related to the chapter, but how this is related to the chapter is that Gin uses it as a snarky remark against Nizo.
Yeah, essentially.
And that's it.
And that's pretty much it.
That's literally it. It literally has nothing to do with anything else. It's just a joke that Gin makes.
And I love that it's probably not true. I mean, first of all, Gintoki having dates, that's kind of a concept I can't wrap my head around. But,
yeah, I can't imagine that happens too often.
Yeah, that's number one. And then number two, I'm sure even if this guy had a date, he'd show up an hour late or more, if at all.
Yeah. and then his date would do the thing that all Japanese women do and be like, oh no, I've only been here for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I remember my Japanese teacher told me a story about how, like, I guess he was in Japan. I mean, he's a white guy. It's not like a Japanese guy. And he was in Japan and like he kept a lady waiting and she like laid into him. It was like,
that's interesting.
That's like, cause you're not supposed to do that. Cause I mean, when I went to Japan, even the trains have like an established place on the track where they're supposed to stop. And like if they're a couple centimeters over that, that's a problem.
Oh, wow.
So like you could stand at a certain spot and they mark it and you can stand right there and you'll be standing by a door. So it's really, I mean, they're very punctual people. So, but yeah, I figure for that, that is an anime staple where it's like somebody's been waiting and the other person gets there late and they're like, no, it hasn't been that long. I guess it's okay for dates, but not okay when meeting just somebody just for that, meeting a friend, I guess. I don't know. I feel like for dates, maybe it's because you like the person enough that, you know, unless it's a blind date.
You're willing to put up with it.
Yeah, you're willing to put up with it because you've already kind of like, I like this guy or girl, so if they're late, I mean, I don't know. I've not been on a date, so I can't say. I've never been on a date in Japan or the US, so I can't say either way.
And honestly, it's been a while since I've been on a date, so
are you bragging?
Couldn't really say.
Are you bragging over there?
I wasn't trying to. I don't even want to talk about, like, how long ago my last girlfriend was, because it's been a long time.
Well, it's been more recent than never. Yeah.
Okay.
Bastard.
Okay, fine, good point. I'm sorry.
Although I say this, but I don't know what my status is right now in that department, so yeah.
I know what my status is. Single.
Oh, okay. We need to do something about that. Get you a Miss Colton.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Mr. Colton was my father's name, not really. Yeah, hopefully I can fix that. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Okay.
We've already been. I don't know if you listened to this episode at all, but which episode was it? I think it might have actually been the Myra 13 episode with Josh. We had an email asking us about our first dates. so if you want to, I didn't really have any good stories because a lot of the dates I've been on have just been, I went to a bookstore with this girl and we had a brownie or something, and I bought her a book or I read her a poem or some shit like that. I don't know. A lot of like really normal stuff. Oh, and study dates. I did have study dates with my last girlfriend quite a lot, actually. We were both in the same biology class.
That's so cute.
Josh's first date story is pretty good. So if you want to go listen to that, that's episode 45 of the podcast. That was a really funny and sad story.
Now I want to listen to it.
I'm really glad Josh hasn't watched these episodes of the anime yet, so he probably hasn't listened to this because he'd probably kill me for bringing it up. But it's out there. I'm not going to erase it anytime soon.
Okay. I don't get to listen to it.
okay, but the chapter title makes sense.
It makes
literally
sense.
Nothing else.
Yeah, it makes sense, but there's nothing really deeper than
all
that.
These chapter titles suck. There's literally nothing to talk about with any of these.
Yeah, it did sound like they were a bunch where it was just I don't know if it was Sorachi's editor that came up with them, or if it was just,
maybe.
I mean, I feel like no matter what way you look at it, they were just a bunch of titles that were based off one-off jokes or common knowledge. And those are usually the least interesting to talk about, I feel like.
Yeah, no kidding. So I think that's about it for the life lesson segment. So if you guys have any thoughts on the chapter titles for the Infant Strife arc, you probably don't. But if you do, if you can find another deeper hidden meaning within these chapter titles that relate to the particular chapter or arc, go ahead and send us an email over at gintalifelessons@gmail.com. We always welcome your thoughts on any chapter title that we may or may not have covered yet. So I guess we should just move on to the next thing. This is the Anime Manga Comparison segment for episodes 51 and 52 of the anime. We're going to be talking about the entire Infant Strife arc, all entire 2 episodes. And there's not like a ton to talk about, though there are maybe one or two changes or one or two liberties taken, kind of more specifically with the second episode that I really wanted to talk about, but some things here and there I want to talk about with episode 51, so like I'm not going to go over all of the episodes other than some of these differences. Like the episode is pretty straightforward, but definitely enough here to warrant a segment, I think. So I guess the first thing that I noticed is, and I tweeted about this one too, so the moment where Tai runs into Gin and Kanshichiro, Tai, willingly offers, insistently offers to buy Gin some ice cream, Anzuki Bean ice cream pop and Haagen-Dazs or whatever, which the store clerk is like, hey, we don't got anything like that. And Tai tells her, oh, hey, you should go get some. And in the manga, the store clerk is like, okay, sure. Whereas the anime is surprisingly more in character than the source material.
Yeah, we were talking about this. In the anime, she slams the dude's head on the counter, like, go get it. He's like, okay.
Yeah, so, and I tweeted about this, and I was like, how is the anime more faithful to the source material than the source material? Like, that one kind of surprised me a bit, actually.
Yeah, I actually just had that part on. Yeah, it's true. It's like, she's more... I don't know. I kind of wonder what made them decide to make that change. I guess they probably just thought it was more in character. Because, I mean, yeah. Sorachi famously said he really doesn't get involved with the anime. So, I mean, it's like, I guess they probably just figured, okay, this is what Tai would do. She's been doing this whole time up until now, so why would she stop now?
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think I talked about this on Twitter, too. I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, or I forgot, but I feel like Sorachi probably didn't have enough space on the page for two separate panels of Tai talking to the store clerk and then another of her slamming his head or whatever, because I feel like if he had to split that panel up, there would not be enough space for that moment to happen on the page. So maybe that's why he didn't do it. I don't know, but again, I feel like the change they made in the anime, again, like you said, is definitely more in character with Tai in particular. So that was a weird change. Also in the anime, I think we also touched upon this in our first manga recap on the last episode too, where when I first watched this episode, and every time I revisit the episode, like, it's not as obvious in the anime that Tai doesn't throw the baby into the river along with Gin, like, because we don't see Kanshichiro at all in that scene after Tai throws Gin into the river. Whereas in the manga, thankfully, you can clearly tell that, like, we do get a shot of Kanshichiro, like, kind of hanging over the side of the riverbed, which, again, it's not really safe for a baby. He could fall in it himself, but...
Right.
Yeah, but, like, at least in the manga, it's a little more obvious that, okay, the baby's safe. Whereas in the anime, every time I rewatch that episode, I'm like, I think I've literally said before, man, Tai's such a bitch. Like, why would, like, you don't throw babies in rivers. Like, how does the baby survive that? Like, that's always, like, boggled my mind for years now.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just kind of, like, looking at that scene now, and it's like, wow. How could she... I always wondered that, too. When I first watched the episode, it was kind of like, what happened to the kid?
Yeah, it was just a weird thing that I'm glad was a little more obvious in the manga. I think it's not really an important thing, but like I like the little moment in the anime where I think, I don't know if this was just worded differently in the Viz translation or if this was just like Sugita ad-libbing. I don't know, might be the first option, but I don't know for sure. But like I like the little part right before Hashida's goons gang up on Gin where he's just walking with Kanshichiro and he starts babbling and Gin's like, "Hey, did you just say dad? Okay, hey, come on, call for your dad. Come on."
It's almost like, yeah, I remember that. And actually, since we're on the anime segment now, I'm not sure, but oh, that's kind of sad. Hashida's voice actor passed away back in 2014.
Who was his voice actor? While you have that up, I actually don't know.
Yada Koji. And he voiced Zeph for One Piece. Sanji's dad. Sanji's quote-unquote dad. Yeah, he voiced Zeph. He voiced, Raul, I don't know who that is, but,
from
One Piece. And
it's probably just a side character or something.
Yeah, but he voiced Zeph. And in Dragon Ball Z was Dr. Gero.
Oh, shit. Huh. So obviously we got a veteran actor here.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the English page, which is obviously very, very, very incomplete. But yeah, he was in Conan too, is Konosuke G. I guess, which is Kaito Kid's butler, I think? I don't remember.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm gonna look at the Japanese page now. I just kinda, because I was listening to his voice, and I was like, he sounds sort of familiar. So I went to go look him up, and yeah, he was Zeph in One Piece. That's where I remember him from.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know he voiced like any of those characters. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm looking through it here, and yeah, it's not really anybody else. Yeah, so the English list is it's pretty complete after all. But yeah, it was Dr. Gero, Android 20, and Zeph in One Piece.
Well, those are some pretty famous enough characters, I think.
Yeah, and he passed away 81 in 2014.
Oh man, that's pretty recent. Jeez.
Yeah, so I guess when Zeph comes back in One Piece, I'll have to have a different person.
Yeah, I wonder who they're gonna get. That's gonna be interesting. But let's see, what was I gonna say? So, I think this is in the same episode too. We're still on episode 51. I think I commented on this in the manga recap as well, that I like the way the anime handles Kagura slowly revealing herself behind Hasegawa.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I kind of prefer her, like, I kind of prefer that still panning shot of Hasegawa going back and forth with his thoughts, quote unquote, and Kagura slowly coming out of the shadows from behind him while feeding him thoughts or whatever. I like the way that was handled in the anime compared to in the manga. You just have those panels of just Kagura behind him and just doing whatever.
We were talking about this with Kagura off mic on Kagura's accent, because I'm watching that scene in the anime now. And yeah, she's slowly coming up from behind him. And then he's all like, wait a second, why do I want to die? That's kind of drastic. And then, like, he only realizes that it's Kagura feeding into his thoughts when he hears the Haru.
Yeah, we were kind of talking a lot about that off mic, about Kagura's speech quirk, and how apparently that's a lot more important than I give it credit for in defining her character. But yeah, I just I also like that scene in the anime, because I talked about it with how Viz translates that back and forth. Reading the text by itself, I thought Hasegawa was just talking to himself. Like, I had no idea that Kagura was, like, talking to him at all. Like, if I didn't watch the anime and, like, listen to Rie Kugimiya, I would have never thought, oh yeah, that's Kagura talking.
Yeah, yeah.
So, combined with Viz's translating most of that text in the first person, as Hasegawa talking, that scene kind of confused me a little bit. With the text in particular, but yeah, I thought that scene was a little funnier in the anime.
I really enjoyed the voice acting, just like Hasegawa was like, yeah, wait, death?
Yeah, Fumihiko is always great. I love him. I think that's about all I had for episode 51. Like like both these episodes. Because, obviously we covered about 4 chapters of the manga, and about each half of both of these episodes covers at least 1 chapter. It's actually kind of amazing, like, how much of a clean cut there is in between material. Because, like, literally, episode 51 covers, like, the first half up to the eye catch covers up to all the samurai guys coming up behind Gin and being like, oh, you got a lot of dads, and then eye catch. And then literally the next half of that episode starts from where chapter 78 starts. So it's just I just found it funny how much of a clean cut there is in between the first and second half of these episodes here. Because like they literally dedicated like 10-11 minutes to like each chapter. So
that's really interesting. I hadn't realized that.
Yeah. So I noticed that while watching the episode. I thought it was interesting. And
one other thing, I'm sorry to cut you off. One other thing is that this episode was mainly drawn in China.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
I'm watching the credits right now. I can't read what company it is because Chinese is not my forte, but it would explain why this episode had some kind of weird kind of art design.
Yeah, actually, I was noticing that too. Like some of the drawings here and there kind of looked almost similar to the kind of drawings we saw in episode, I want to say 48. I think it was 48, or maybe it was 47.
I can have a look at that later, but yeah, I can tell. I can't read any of the names or the company, but I can tell because Japanese names typically have 4 kanji, and Chinese names have 3 or 2. There are a lot of Chinese names in this. Like the direction, like the art direction and storyboard were done in Japan, but like a good chunk of the actual in-between animation and keyframes were drawn in China.
Yeah, okay, I could see that. Yeah, the episode looked a little off here and there, but nothing to the degree of like the first episode of Umibozu or episode 47, I believe, with one of the Miko sisters and Otai at a pub smile or whatever. That episode did not look good.
No, it did. I know without even looking, I know what you're talking about.
Jesus. Okay, but I think that's really about it for episode 51, unless you had anything else to say.
No.
Okay, then episode 52 has like 1 or 2 changes here and there, and I think I really like. I was reading the manga and I was like, "Wait, how come it's not happening like this?" So the first thing I thought was really interesting. I mean, because like I said, like I was kind of rushing through episode 52, so I kind of kept bomber waiting before we started the podcast. But I'm really glad I watched episode 52 before we started recording, because Kantaro in the anime. Actually, his metaphor is slightly changed in the anime, whereas in the manga, he said he wanted to live like a cicada, essentially. He says in the anime he basically wants to live like a sakura petal. I think the metaphor is essentially the same, which is using different objects. So, I thought that change was kind of interesting. Not really much else I wanted to say there other than that was an interesting change. I wonder why they went with that change.
Yeah, I can't. I'm looking at it now and I'm just like, I don't know why they would make that change, because at least to me it doesn't make sense. But yeah,
I mean, I think both metaphors work. You know, I think both objects are. You know, I think they both. You know, they both work. Yeah. The change doesn't really take away from anything. I guess it's just a little more beautiful because flowers. Yeah. That's essentially it. And then 1 or 2 times actually in the episode, there's a nice little scene right before Gin tells Shinpachi and Kagura to leave and go after Hashida, where Kanshichiro actually starts squirming in Hashida's arms, and he actually starts getting kind of bothered. And Gin starts basically commenting on it, and he's like, "Hey, you're supposed to be like his grandfather, and he's not. He doesn't really want to be held by you, And talks about how he's not qualified to be a grandfather at all. And then Gin has a line where he's like, "Oh, well, when Kanshichiro was with me, he was as quiet as a middle schooler on a date," which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, I just got it. When he was with me, he was as quiet as a middle school boy on his first date. Yeah, if I just got there.
Yeah, so I remembered that scene while I was reading the manga, but I was like, hey, where's that? I remember that vividly. And then I got to it in the anime, oh, okay, it's an anime only thing, that's why. And I think Kanshichiro even kind of makes a little bit of noise even when Hashida and Office are on the roof, and basically emphasizes how much Kanchichiro probably is not comfortable with his grandfather, which obviously changes when we get most of his backstory and realize how broken of a man he is. And Kanchichiro, being the smart baby that he is like, oh, okay, I get it. And let's see. So it's not really a change, but I do want to talk about this. I thought the anime really handled Gin's final clash with Nizo very well. I thought there was a lot more tension. Everything from the red tinted lighting, right when Nizo, quote unquote, cuts off Gin's arm. And I really like the choice they made where, like, you just have a shot of basically their clash has ended. They're both on different sides. Obviously, something has happened, but you don't know what happens. And you just see a flying arm just fly right over the screen vertically. And it's like, whoa. Like, I thought it was like surprising enough. Like, it went by quick enough to kind of surprise you, like, whoa, somebody's arm got cut off, but you don't know whose it is right until they show Gin on the ground bleeding. And I thought that scene was handled okay in the manga comparatively. Like, it wasn't bad at all, but I really thought there was more tension here with that clash, and especially afterwards where you know, obviously Nizo thinks he's won, and Gin takes his arm, like the arm that like got cut off too, his right arm, and grabs Nizo's hand with it as he's trying to use his nose spray, which I thought was also a nice little way of like adding some surprise there, like, oh my god, that's the arm that got cut off or whatever. I just like I thought they handled the surprise factor, the surprise and shock factor of this fight very well, and yeah. I thought it made for a more, like, it was quick, but I thought it made for a more intense fight scene.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it was good. Like, I really liked the way it was handled. Like, I think I liked the way this was handled, even though there's still that thing of, oh, well, my blade's been broken since like all this time or whatever, since our first clash. There's still that in there, and I still have, you know, whether my suspension of disbelief is all the way there or not, I still like the way this fight was directed. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely, like I said before, the anime, and I'm looking at it now, the shadowing, like, the scene on the roof now, I really love the backgrounds for it, like, the sunset and everything. It wasn't clear it was sunsetting until the very last scene in the manga.
Yeah.
But in the anime, it's clear, it's shown right, you know, from the beginning.
Yeah, I was saying in the manga recap, too, like, there's some really good shots on the roof at the end of that episode. But I think that's really about all I have to say for these two episodes, actually, unless there was anything you wanted to bring up.
Well, let's see. I'm headed towards the credits now. This one's a Japanese drawn episode, thank goodness. I mean,
yeah, I can definitely tell.
Outsourcing happens to all anime, even Gintama.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. Do you have any preference for the material this time around, anime or manga? Any thoughts?
I mean, I feel like the anime did a really nice job on both sides, on both episodes. I mean, even though the first one was outsourced, it still looked pretty good. And then the second one was really nice with Sasaki Yohei on board. And then the manga version, I just feel like it's like we said, we've touched upon it already, so there's really not much more I can add. But I think that the manga version was really nicely done too. I mean, it was kind of like Sorachi showing his chops that he can do an action series when he wants to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. See, I don't know. I kind of, I really like the anime and how it's handled, but I also think the manga does a great job too. I don't know. I feel like by like a slight margin, I feel like I do enjoy the anime a little bit more. But I will say I didn't really have a ton of problem with the manga either, but I think the anime has some slight improvements on the material that make me kind of enjoy this story a little bit more. It adds a lot of little things that I think really make this feel a little more complete. But I guess that's with most anime adaptations, or some. I don't know about all, but yeah, just a slight margin. Anime. I'll feel like I have to go with the anime on this one. I really enjoyed watching this animated, but the manga is not bad by any means.
No, it's not bad by any. I have a difficult time choosing between both. I mean, I guess the anime, by virtue of the anime having sound and color, it kind of wins out. I mean, it does, and some of the directorial choices for the second episode are really nice. So, yeah, I would side with anime, too.
Okay. And I think that's about it for that segment. So, if you guys want to watch the Gintama anime, you want to watch episodes 51 and 52, you want to watch the Infant Strife arc, you can go over to Crunchyroll and either watch it for free if you're in the US, or if you want to avoid watching ads during your viewing, get a subscription. It's pretty much worth it at $6.95 a month. You can even watch all the new shows coming out too. So
and we shouldn't forget that there's a new season of Gintama coming out that'll probably be on Crunchyroll when it starts, most likely in April.
Oh yeah. So yeah, especially get a Crunchyroll account for when the new season comes out, so you can watch that week to week. I know I will. And I think that's about it for that segment. We should just move on to the next thing. And with all of that, that is going to bring this episode to a close. I hope everybody enjoyed our coverage of the Infant Strife arc. On this episode, we covered chapters 79 and 80 of the manga in our 2 manga recaps. We also had a life lessons segment discussing the chapter titles for both chapters respectively. And last but not least, we had a anime manga comparison segment of episodes 51 and 52. And that about does it for the Infant Strife arc. Like I said, I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening to Bomber again. Definitely somebody I try to have on as much as I can, and hopefully we will be hearing from him again in the near future. Maybe not next episode, but we'll talk about that in just a second. But I guess, speaking of Bomber, I think I mentioned before, if you want to follow him on Twitter, you can follow him at Kirobon. That's Kiirobon, Kirobon. And you should also follow his new blog. I mentioned it on the previous episode, but Bomber used to do these things on his Twitter account called what he liked to call his weekly Shonen Sunday talkbacks, where he would basically go through almost the entirety of an issue of Weekly Shonen Sunday and talk about the manga that he reads from that magazine in particular. For those who don't know, Weekly Shonen Magazine is essentially the magazine that runs manga such as Detective Conan / Case Closed and Magi, however you want to call it. Manga like that. Doesn't have much of a presence over here, unfortunately, but there are manga in that magazine that people do know and read and very much love. But Bomber has basically started a whole blog dedicated to these kind of recaps called the Sunday Talkback blog, and you can find that blog at wsstalkback.blogspot.com. You should check back every, I want to say, Tuesday for a new post from that blog. Again, Bomber is very passionate about Weekly Shonen Sunday and most of the series that run in that magazine, and really just the magazine as a whole. So, if you're interested in learning more about that magazine in particular, and you're interested in what kind of manga runs in that magazine, just go check that out. Again, that's wsstalkback.blogspot.com. And with that out of the way, again, thank you so much to Bomber for joining us. But if you're interested in any of my opinions at all, if you don't already get enough of them from this show, you could follow me on Twitter at SniperKing323. That's SNIPERKING323. And I do a few other podcasts as well. besides this show, I also record, actually speaking of Detective Conan, I record a podcast sort of similar to this one where we talk about Detective Conan / Case Closed through the manga from the very beginning, except I talk about it with Doctor from the Ass Backwards Anime Podcast and Just a Gintama Podcast. That is One Podcast Prevails, so if you're a fan of Detective Conan, you can go find that at onepodcastprevails.com. And if you really just want to hear me talk about manga in general, I do read a lot of other series, and you can hear me talk about some of them on Manga Mavericks. That's at allcomic.com. We not only talk about manga as a medium, but as an industry, so we also talk about a lot of talk about the latest happenings in the manga industry and what news is coming out of that. I record that with my friend Sid, otherwise known as La Ramayasha. He was a past guest on Life Lessons with me during the Ubibozu arc. So, if you want to hear me talk about just manga in general, go listen to that. That's at allcomic.com. But as for Life Lessons, you can listen to this episode and the rest of our show at gintalifelessons.wordpress.com. That's where every episode is posted first. You can also listen to us on Stitcher or the Stitcher Smart Radio app, or on Player FM if you so choose. You can follow us on Facebook.com, Twitter.com, or YouTube.com /GintaMangaCast. That's GintaMangacast, Ginta Manga Cast. You can also email us anything about Gintama, the podcast, or just really anything in general, and we'll read it on the show at gintalifelessons@gmail.com, or you can leave us feedback in our occasional threads whenever I get the chance to post them over on the Gintama subreddit. That's at reddit.com/r/Gintama. But the most important thing, guys, is that you subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. Please do that. That would mean the world to us. But I think that's about it for this episode. I do just want to put out there real quick, join us next time for episode 55, where I will be joined by Lisa Wallen, a professional stand-up comedian from, I want to say, Georgia. I'm so bad I forgot where she actually lives. No, actually, I think it's Seattle. I am not good with geography. Well, where does she actually live? Find out on the next episode of Life Lessons. We covered chapter 81 of the manga there and had a lot of really good discussion on Gintama and what it sort of means to her as a comedian. Good. I thought it was a pretty good episode, but hopefully I will be releasing that in the next week or so. I'm definitely going to be getting that one out pretty soon. I have it all recorded. I just need to sit down and edit it. So hopefully it'll be out sooner, but it'll definitely be out within the next week. Hopefully on Monday or maybe Wednesday at the latest. I don't know just yet, but it will be out soon. I can promise that. So look forward to that episode. But until then, this has been episode 54 of Life Lessons, the Gintama Manga Cast, and we will see you guys next time. So, see ya!